Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is today, and welcome back. I hope your week is unfolding beautifully and you're ready to celebrate Papusa Tuesday because that's what we have cooking today. Soon as the tubes fire up, it's great to see everybody. We've got a lot of business to attend to today. Judge Paula Zenas is the subject of today's show. You remember who she is. What's up, locals? Just joining us. We got some serious business to attend to. We're talking about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. You remember this fella right here, who was deported out of the country to El Salvador. Yesterday, we read through a number of different updates provided by the Trump DOJ into the judge. Judge Zenas yesterday said, I want updates from you, and I want answers to these three questions. Where is Abrego Kilmar? What are you doing to get him out? And what have you done to get him out thus far? And Trump responded basically saying, nothing. He's in El Salvador. He's under their custody and care. Talk to them. Sent several updates. All of this was culminating in a hearing that took place today. We're going to go through it. I want to go through and give us a breakdown on what happened today in terms of filing. So we'll look at some of the court documents first. Here is another declaration that dropped right at the tail end of the show yesterday. So we'll get up to speed on that. We'll also look at today's filing. This one got dropped 4:15. You can see this is, of course, another declaration from Joseph Mazzara, acting general counsel, the lawyer from Homeland, the big guns. So they brought him out. We also then got a request from the ACLU gangbang lawyers asking for more relief, saying they have to facilitate this dude's release. So make them ask for his release. And we'll go through what their latest is. Now, there's also a filing that is in Colorado, and it's the same ACLU gangbang lawyers, give or take, same organization, that is suing in Colorado, and they're filing an emergency motion for clarification over there. Okay, so we're in Maryland today, but simultaneously we're also in Colorado, and they're freaking out in Colorado because they're saying Trump is still rounding people up. Like he's supposed to stop rounding up these gangbangers and throwing them out, but no, he's not stopping at all. All this litigation is happening in Maryland, but the party's not over, man. We're still getting rid of the illegals out of our country, happening in Colorado. And so the ACLU came in, help stop this. So they're freaking out, and it's a lot of fun to see what they're freaked out about. So we'll read through that. We got updates. There was a rally outside. So the hearing took place today. You can see some gangbang lovers out there getting extra gangbangery. Just zoom in on them. Yeah. So they're all out there having fun. Bring back terrorists. We love terrorists. So they're out there doing all that stuff, which will be a lot of fun. We'll go through from our friend Roger Parloff. And, well, we think we're his friends, but I don't know if he feels the same about that. But anyways, he is reporting live from the hearing, and he dropped for us about 40-something X's and posts that we'll go through. We'll read through what happened here today. But the long and short of it is the judge is not happy. She's saying, I want to know why you're not complying with my orders. And I'm going to start a discovery process that may involve some interrogatories. And I'm going to bring everybody in here to ask you what you're doing and who did what by when. And all she's trying to do is find a predicate to hold them in contempt, obviously. So we'll read through that. We got some reaction from Pam Bondi, who was out last night with Jesse Waters. And Caroline Levitt is also explaining to the media how the law works and what the difference is between a terrorist and an illegal alien, because the news just can't figure it out. So we'll go through that. We'll see what she had to say about it. Then I want to jump into some reaction here because Hakeem Jeffries is out, and he is now scrambling along with the rest of the Democrats to figure out what to do about this. And this is wild. So JD Vance called this out today, and you may have seen it, but he posted, he says, the entire media on the left-wing industrial complex has decided today is Papusa Tuesday. And they're all coming out. It's MS Gangbang Sesh, and they're having a ton of fun with this, one after another. And so we'll go through some of them. But we got Hakeem was out on MSNBC's #1 show called Inside Jen Psaki. She's back, looking very Jen Psaki. So we'll listen to her. We've also got more from a bunch of other lefties. Okay, they went out, like they all got the memo. So Hakeem was out. We also had Richie Torres was out, and a whole slew of them. I got them all linked up here. Look at all these tabs up here. It'll make your gut hurt because we got a lot of Democrats. But we'll get through them, and we'll make fun of them the entire time, so it'll be enjoyable. Then we'll talk about what their final strategy is. And the Democrats, and this is not a joke, they're talking about launching kidnapping charges against Trump and anybody who's working with ICE to go round up these illegals, charging the government with crimes and using attorney generals to do it. And you know who has been a part of the attorney general lawfare before? Letitia James. Oh, she's going to bring criminal charges against the president again. We'll see. So they're talking about it, and it's not a joke. All right. This woman who looks just nuts, Representative Laura Friedman, is going to explain here for us that they're working on this every day. They're meeting with attorneys generals all around the country, trying to figure out a strategy. How can we prosecute Trump again? Because it worked so well for him last time. So they're working on it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right. They haven't really thought about immunity, qualified immunity, sovereign immunity, and all these things, but they're working hard, like literally to charge them with crimes. That's how insane they are. So we'll go through it. We got more reaction on what happened yesterday. This Democrat's going to go down to El Salvador and I guess do some pupusa business down there. But we'll talk about that. Caroline Leavitt was just on a tear today. So clip and reaction from her. Even CNN and Tom Homan are out. And so, as you can see, we've got a lot of fun stuff to get to today. In particular, Judge Zenas and her hearing coming up. And so, my friends, really great to have you here. Thanks for being here. Thanks for subscribing if you haven't already done so. Thanks for considering becoming a member if you want to grab some extra content, meet some amazing people, and join us on our Membo streams. We go live in the mornings, my time. It's noon Eastern time, so 12 noon Eastern in the mornings, 5 days a week if we can get to them, 6 days on Saturday. And we really invest and love our members. We have a ton of fun. We get to a bunch of other stuff that we can't get to here, and we think it's well worth it. So thanks for considering it. You can join on YouTube, join on Locals, and we'll see you tomorrow on the members only stream. Thanks for that. And it's a great way to support our work. And I love you. So, all right, we also have that. Now, let's get to business on the day. Yeah, Villa Platt on Local says it's not even 5 minutes. The stream's not even 5 minutes, and Rob's already mentioning Tish. I know. It's Tish everywhere. She's just like infested everything, all of America. All right, so let's get to this, my friends. We got some serious business to attend to, starting with this declaration. An Obama judge is not happy with Trump and the DOJ and Homeland Security. This is the case of Kilmar. And we're going to read through this declaration. And there's something very interesting here. This was submitted by Trump to the court. And inside the declaration that was submitted today, the date of this recording, what we're going to see is that the DOJ from Trump is saying something like, we are prepared to facilitate Abrego Garcia's presence in the United States. What? They're going to facilitate his presence in the United States? What exactly does that mean? Well, ultimately, we'll take him in to throw him back out, but we'll come back to that. But the hearing took place today. And remember, this case is in the courtroom of Judge Paula Zenas. Zenas. I think she pronounces it officially C-Knees, as we'll learn, but we like to say Zenas because it kind of sounds like a male appendage, and I'm sure it really irritates her. But anyways, we got this judge appointed by Barack Obama, political appointee. This is the case involving Kilmar, who is, according to a judge, somebody connected to MS-13, was found to be non-bondable in the proceedings here. You saw this back from 2019. This immigration judge, Elizabeth Kessler, said he is not bondable because of his connections to a gang. And he appealed this, of course, and was denied the appeal. So this guy got plenty of due process. He's not in the country legally. He never had proper asylum here. And the entire narrative has been poisoned with a poison pill. DOJ attorney who was later suspended, calling it an administrative error. But this was never an administrative error. Once people who are in MS-13 or adjudicated to be MS-13 were declared to be foreign terrorists, all the rules changed. And under the US Code, the Attorney General has the power under the law to have removal of an alien to a country if the Attorney General decides that the alien's life or freedom, right, can't move them to a certain place if they're going to be injured. But there's an exception. If the Attorney General decides that in subsection 4 here under US Code, there are reasonable grounds to believe that the alien is a danger to the security of the United States, well, then under that provision of the law, the Attorney General decides. The Attorney General decides, not a District of Maryland federal judge. So that is under the law. 8 US Code 1231. The judge can look it up. But the point is, the Alien Enemies Act and the declaration by the Attorney General, Trump, Homeland, and others saying that this guy is now a terrorist, changed his status and made him removable. So it wasn't an administrative error. And we've talked about that many times before. Now, that is the case as it stands. Now, what happened is this judge held a hearing today. We're going to break down what happened in the hearing. But prior to the hearing, the judge was telling us, send us updates. We want to report every single day, Trump. Give us a report on what you're doing. 3 questions that she demanded be answered. 1, what is his status? 2, what have you done to get him out? And 3, what are you continuing to do to get him out, provided that he's not out? 3 questions. Trump responded multiple times, you can see, provided updates over the weekend and basically said, we don't have an update for you. He's in El Salvador. We told you that yesterday, and you knew that already. And we're not doing anything because he's in El Salvador's custody. He's an El Salvadorian citizen. He did not have asylum status in the United States. Got here when he was young, had a long time to apply for it, never did. Then when he was in a hearing to adjudicate whether he was affiliated with MS-13 or not, he didn't provide any evidence to rebut the allegations brought against him. And now they're saying he should have due process again. Maybe he should have 15 trials until the ACLU gets the outcome that they want. But the point is, the Trump administration was sending in updates, and they came in the form of the following. Now, yesterday, we were wrapping up the show, and this one came skidding in. Let me get rid of this disgusting blue and get back to America Red. And what we can see is that this was submitted yesterday at the conclusion of the day, and they say it was late, and their judge is going to, not be happy about any of that. But here's what they said yesterday. It says, look, I am Joseph N. Mazzara. I'm acting general counsel of Homeland Security. I'm the lawyer for Homeland. Now, I provide this declaration based on my personal knowledge. Now, I'm aware that in the instant lawsuit that's been filed about Kilmar is occurring. Now, on March 15th, writes the lawyer for Homeland, Abrego Garcia Kilmar, a native and a citizen of El Salvador, was removed to El Salvador pursuant to Title 8 of the U.S. Code, the same statute that I just referenced to you. See the declaration of Evan Katz we read yesterday. Now, during bond proceedings in 2019, an immigration judge, just showed you that document too, upheld DHS's decision not to grant bond, finding that Homeland's determination that he was a member of MS-13 was trustworthy and supported by other evidence. And so a judge found evidence that was good enough for the judge. And you're going to see a bunch of stories now about, well, the officer who wrote the affidavit was fired or let go for other misconduct, which happens a lot. And they'll say, well, that officer was bad, and so this case should be dismissed because the underlying evidence brought forward by this bad cop undermines the entire proceedings, which would be a great argument if they rebutted that at the time and they weren't trying to cobble together things in the aftermath to show why the original finding was bad. Noted that Abrego Kilmar failed to present evidence to rebut that assertion, right? They even gave us the quote. Thank you for the assist. Now, the Board of Immigration Appeals, a second proceeding, upheld the finding when he appealed. Oh, we got that document too. 2 reviews by independent bodies in a judicial setting and format, which is due process. The guy got due process. He had 2 hearings, one of them an appeal. He gets more due process here than many people get when you're even fighting a traffic ticket. Most people don't even fight him or appeal him, right? And this guy didn't show up to court for traffic tickets. But you get the point. He's getting due process. He's getting a systemized, standardized review. That's due process. Now, Abrego was ordered removed by an immigration judge. So all those people who say bring him home, he already had an order of removal. He was also granted withholding of removal by an immigration judge, which at the time MS-13 was not declared a terrorist organization and not part of that consideration. And now, as we see under 8 U.S. Code, what I just shared with you, the Attorney General under the declaration, under the proclamation, can say this guy is a danger. And under the law, he's no longer eligible for withholding. We just read it. Saying Abrego Garcia, though, is no longer eligible for withholding because of his membership in MS-13, which is now a designated foreign terrorist organization. The administration changed. Just because you had prior incompetent morons like Mayorkas and Biden not doing anything doesn't mean that Trump can't do anything to enforce the law. DHS has established processes, they write to Judge Zenas, for taking steps to remove domestic obstacles that would otherwise prevent an alien from lawfully entering the United States. Now, Homeland does not have authority to forcibly extract an alien from the domestic custody of foreign sovereign nations. The judge wants them to go pull a Mission Impossible with Ethan Hunt and zip line down, pull him out of the prison cell, bring him back. So here's what the lawyer says. Now, I am aware that the president, this is yesterday, of El Salvador, Bukele, was in Washington yesterday to meet with Trump. They held a bilateral summit, and I understand that in response to a question about Kilmar, Bukele said to the Caitlin Collins person, well, I hope you're not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, are you? How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? Of course I'm not going to do it. The question is preposterous. And the video of the meeting is on YouTube. We played it here. Amazing. So I declare under penalty of perjury, this is true. And obviously that's their citizen. It's their country. They know as much as we know about the dude. He came from there. So he's saying, I'm not going to release a terrorist either. That was the update from yesterday. Then we got an update from today. They sent this in. Same guy, Joseph Mazzara, coming in the Kilmar case, says, all right, look, on March 15th, copy and pasting, saying Abrego was removed to El Salvador. And during bond proceedings in 2019, an immigration judge said the following, copy and paste it again, trustworthy, DHS, and supported by other evidence, MS-13, and noted that he did not rebut it at the time. So the Board of Immigration and Appeals upheld it, and then he was ordered removed. So he was also granted withholding, but he's no longer eligible for withholding because MS-13 is designated as a foreign terrorist organization. All the same, copy and pasted. Now, Abrego Garcia is being held in the sovereign domestic custody of the independent nation of El Salvador. Homeland does not have authority to forcibly extract him from there. But DHS has established processes for taking steps to remove domestic obstacles. This is the facilitation that would otherwise prevent an alien from lawfully entering the United States. That's curious. So we do have a system for this. And so this lawyer, general counsel, I have been authorized to represent to you, Judge, that Homeland is prepared to facilitate Abrego Garcia's presence in the United States in accordance with those processes if he presents at a port of entry. Wow. You're asking yourself, what? They're going to help him come back here? They're going to facilitate his return? That's crazy. We're going to negotiate with an MS-13 member to come back into our country? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. What does facilitate mean exactly? Well, I have been authorized to represent that if Kilmar Abrego does present at a port of entry, so if El Salvador on their own volition and own authority via President Bukele, if they release him and Kilmar does present at a port of entry, he would become subject to detention by DHS. Now, in that case, Homeland would then take him into custody in the United States and either remove him to a third country or terminate his withholding of removal because of his membership of MS-13, a designated foreign terrorist organization, and we would then remove him to El Salvador, which is what we've already done. Now, they should just say again, right? Again, right there, because that's what they did. Now, I don't know if they have the documents to back that up. I don't know if they can go back to 8 U.S. Code and say, here, 8 U.S. Code 1231 in subsection B, when it comes down to removals, there's a lot of text here. But in this subsection, as we just highlighted, there are exceptions right here when there are reasonable grounds to believe that the alien is a danger to the security of the United States. And that is something that can be decided by the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, right there. So did she make that decision? Did she document it somewhere? Or does she need to? Can she just say this decision was made in conjunction with Homeland and the authority exists to remove him? Well, that's what the argument is. So he says, I am now signing this under penalty of perjury, saying I'm aware that the president of El Salvador was in Washington and they held a bilateral summit. And while I understand to be what I understand to be the unofficial transcript of the meeting is here, this is what I've got for you. If you want to read the full transcript of the meeting, you can check it out at rev.com. Signed by Joseph Mazzara. So we get a little bit of an update. Oh, you say the Supreme Court says that we should facilitate his release? Okay, or facilitate his return, rather. Okay, we can facilitate his return. As soon as he comes to our border, we're rounding him up and he's going out again because he doesn't have a right to withholding. They are MS-13 terrorists declared by proclamation of President Trump, and he has been already adjudicated in 2 courts, in the lower level court and in the Court of Appeals as such. So those are the updates. Now, the ACLU, they had a fit over this. As you can see, they sent this one in. They said, oh my gosh, Your Honor, how dare they? We want him released immediately. They write, the government contends, these are the gangbang lawyers, that the term facilitate is limited to removing any domestic obstacles that would otherwise impede the alien's ability to return. But that's not so. The Supreme Court ordered the government, you can see here, to facilitate Abrego, they quote it, release from custody in El Salvador, and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been properly sent to El Salvador. Now, that order is rendered null if construed only to require removing domestic obstacles. Yeah, but a lot of this, this is why John Roberts, in his opinion, was so terrible, is because they're also afforded the due deference that the executive branch is owed, right? They have to afford them that due deference, which is codified under the law to give the Attorney General and the President national security powers that are invoked via the rubber stamp of Congress through the Alien Enemies Act. So Trump is acting with 2 branches of government relative to the one immigration judge's withholding. Okay, 2 beats 1. The Congress plus the executive branch have properly delegated these decisions to the president, to the executive branch, not to the judge. So once it got designated terrorism, it was no longer this judge's purview. So they say to give that's the due deference to the executive branch. That was in the Supreme Court's decision. So to give any meaning to the Supreme Court's order, the government should be at least required to request. All right. So this shows you that they know this has no teeth and this argument is crap. Like, look, if you think that that is the order of the Supreme Court, honestly, if you think that the order is from the Supreme Court, release from custody to ensure the case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent over there, well, then you better, send some tanks down there, right, to get this done. Like, they ordered you to get it out. So now they're admitting in this, well, at least just have him ask. Can they just ask? Like, just have him write a letter and send it over. At least be required to request the release. Like, that's it. Make them request it, right? Now, and you're like, no, that's foreign policy. We're not going to make a request of a foreign nation. Get out of here. That's telling the president how to interface with a foreign leader. Get out of here. No, that is not your power. You don't get to order the president to make decisions or make requests. That makes the judge in power of foreign policy via subpoena, via court order. Totally ridiculous. Now, but it drops the facade. They realize, well, just make them ask, because they know they can't do anything else. Now, contrary to the government's assertion that it lacks authority to take any such actions, its own ICE policy directive requires DHS supervisors to coordinate to facilitate the return of removed individuals. Does it say remove terrorists too in there? Does it also say in this statute here, this directive, which we don't give a crap about, these directives? We care about the statutes and the law. Remember, it goes to U.S. code, then it goes into Code of Federal Regulations that pervert the U.S. code. Then from there, it goes into directives and memos and all these things, and it perverts everything. So they cite stuff that is useful to them. The return of removed individuals. Well, guess what? He's not just a removed individual. He's an alien enemy declared a terrorist of a terroristic gang. So thank you for your irrelevant statute. It's not in your Venn diagram anymore. Okay, Kamala, we moved it out. It's over here now. Now saying the Secretary of State Rubio, this is the ACLU lawyers writing, they announced that the government delivered an additional 10 detainees to El Salvador on Saturday. Amazing. They just keep going. There are no brakes on this train. Now, that involved all three of the actions that the government says that the courts can't order, which is making demands of El Salvador, dispatching personnel, and sending aircraft. So they're like, well, if you're sending them down there already, just pick them up. Put them on the plane. You're already stopping by. Like, can't you just pick them up? You're on the way there anyways. Just drop them off. Says the government holds contractual rights to send prisoners to its contract facility where the U.S. has outsourced its prisoners. And so it can exercise those same contractual rights to request their relief. Now, since this court order, the government is not giving updates. The government's updates do not indicate that any steps have been taken to comply with this court's orders, and there is no evidence that anyone has requested the release of Abrego, because they haven't. That's why there's no evidence. No one's requesting his release. Nobody wants him out. So this all got signed off on here by Jonathan, Cooper, Quinn, and others, Murray. And this looks like it's a different law firm here. So I'm not sure if these are the ACLU gangbang lawyers or not, but they're certainly joining in on the fun. So we got a lot of them. And this was out of Maryland in the Greenbelt Division. Now, that is what the filings look like. And while we're here, let's just do a quick update to see if the judge published anything for us today. Yes, she did. Amazing. Okay, so we're going to come back to that. Now, simultaneous, I wanted to just point on this. We're going to get to the day's hearings, what happened in her courtroom next. But here is what also happened with this in the District of Colorado. Same type of situation. So it's about the proclamation and the immediate removal. And here they're freaked out. And again, this is from the ACLU gangbang lawyers. So here are them right there, as you can see. So they sent this, Colorado, we're freaked. We need an emergency order ordering that Trump shall not remove these people from our country. We seek a class action on behalf of all non-citizens in custody of Colorado who are subject to the Alien Enemies Act. Okay, the deportations will continue until the country improves. Now, the class is identical to another case, which was in the Southern District of New York. And we have gotten, okay, they're freaked. We've gotten credible reports that as recently as this morning, Venezuelan men at the Denver Contract Detention Facility, who had been accused of being Tren de Aragua gangbangers instead of the MS-13s, were rousted from bed and told that they were going to be leaving the detention facility today. They're going home, back to Venezuela. They repeatedly asked where they would be taken. I said, home. You don't need to know. You're getting out of here. Bye. They were subsequently informed that the flight that they were supposed to be on had been canceled today, and therefore, upon information and belief, they have not been removed from Colorado. So given the likelihood, however, that without further clarity from the court that they're going to be removed, we request an order, keep these Tren de Aragua gangbangers here. The ACLU lawyers want them badly. And second, we want a clarification as to the length of the order. We want it to last a long time. Don't get them out of our country. Okay, so this is happening. They're filing these lawsuits in multiple jurisdictions everywhere. And it's just wild to see the ACLU work so hard for illegals. They didn't fight for Americans as far as I remember when our government was locking people down or firing citizens during COVID, or when they were abusing people who were fighting for pro-life causes, or when they were abusing the J6ers, or where was the ACLU when they were running roughshod over the entire Constitution when they were prosecuting Trump? Nowhere to be found. But as soon as the gangbangers are in trouble, and the trans de Aragua, as we have called them, because I think one of the gangbangers was trans, as they said, was going to be attacked if he goes back home, they go wild. So they were out there today. This is the crowd that they drew out there protesting outside of Paula Zenas's hearing. She was holding that today. We're coming into that. Here's what it sounded like. Okay, so they're not even speaking English. It's just screaming in Spanish. Cuando, ahora, when, now, when, now. It's like you got to even come up with a better chant. So upside down flag, bunch of terror-loving morons who don't know the difference between, I guess, a citizen and a non-citizen, or understand the difference between withholding of removal and an order of removal, which are different things, and how the law interfaces. But that's what they look and sound like out there. Don't even know what they're protesting for, but they were there. Now, inside the courtroom, we got some details. Roger Parloff reporting for us what happened inside the Maryland courtroom. He reports over for Lawfare, and you can follow his reporting, of course, on X at rparloff on X, or at lawfaremedia.org, and he is a great follow. Does good reporting, even if we don't always agree with the interpretation of his reports. But he writes this: if you're following these threads, you can become a supporter at givebutter.com/journalism. Check him out if you want to do that. Now, there are protesters out there screaming, bring gangbangers back to America. Cuando, ahora. Cuando, ahora. Okay, Roger says, now I asked a court clerk how we pronounce her name, Paul Zenas, and her last name. She calls it knees, pointing to her eyes and to her knees. knees. Don't call her Zenas. She hates that because it sounds like penis. And I bet she hates it. So while you were waiting, there's another Lawfare article. We've covered it, a lot of what's inside. We got the status report, and suddenly Judge Paula Zenas is on the bench. All rise. Please be seated. She says, all right, everybody. Appearances, please. Good morning, Your Honor. Drew Ensign and Ernesto Molino for the Trump DOJ. Nice to be here. Good morning, Your Honor. Rena Gandhi for Abrego Garcia. And there's a bunch of other clients in the courtroom as well. And judge says, well, we're going to get started today with what the plaintiffs' ACLU Kilmar lawyers have filed. They're asking for additional relief. We just read through the filing. They say they want to request, make him request his release. Make him say, just ask. ACLU or Abrego Garcia lawyers say, well, Your Honor, the reason we're asking for this is because the Supreme Court ruled that the government is properly required to facilitate his release from custody in El Salvador. The release. And to date, Your Honor, they provided no evidence of what, if anything, the government has done to facilitate his return to America. Now, they have not even unambiguously requested his return. And there's no evidence that if the government has exercised its contractual right to obtain his return either. So they're not even asking, and they have a contract, so they could just cancel the contract and make him come back. The government does this all the time. And this doesn't interfere with foreign policy at all. It's just contracts. We've seen it time and time again. And so under the rules, Your Honor, we want a deposition of Trump and all of these Homeland and DOJ people who have fuera these people. Under Rule 30b-6, we want a deposition. And so we would ask you to direct the government to submit to a deposition. Whoa, judge says, wait a minute. Government says, all right, government lawyer. Well, you would not be opposed to interrogatories, would you? Like if they ask you some questions, government, would you be opposed to that? No, Your Honor, we would not. Judge says, well, your motion, Kilmar lawyers, also asks for broader relief. You're also asking, maybe this is a new filing we haven't seen yet, which would be contempt, broader relief, like contempt. Sounds like you're right-sizing it. From my perspective, right, Mr. Abrego Garcia has already won his injunctive relief. So you came into my courtroom, in other words, asking for an injunction to bring him back, and you won that. Now you're asking for more. Now you're asking for contempt. Is that right? Well, Your Honor, every day that he's retained in CCOT in El Salvador is another day of irreparable harm. Now, and the judge says it's not for this court to engage in the process. We have to give both sides process, but we're going to move. And the judge says there's not going to be any tolerance for gamesmanship or any grandstanding in here. And so this process, Kilmar lawyers, sounds like expedited discovery. Is that what you want? Is that the core of what you're asking for right now, right? It sounds like she probably says, yes, that's what we want, discovery. Judge turns over to the government, Drew Ensign, Trump lawyer. Mr. Ensign, now let's take off table a hearing today. I know we're here, but let's take that off. Now, I'm not going to issue a show cause today for contempt findings. That's not going to happen today. But I do find it well within my authority to proceed with expedited discovery. And I'm going to determine whether you are abiding by my court orders, whether you intend to. And if not, my question for you is it in bad faith? Is it in good faith? But let's get to the bottom of it. Do you have any problem with that? Your Honor, as we just filed recently, we're prepared to facilitate his return to the U.S. under the meaning of the word facilitate. Okay, so judge is like screaming at him about all this stuff. Like, you're going to do interrogatories and all that. He just kind of parries that. Says, Your Honor, look, we don't need to get into all of that. We've already explained. We're prepared to facilitate his return to the U.S. under the meaning of facilitate that the INS uses. Judge says, well, let's talk about that. You know, first you say my order is inconsistent with the Supreme Court. Now I reject that. She reads from the SCOTUS ruling. She says they even said right here, okay, the order was totally a mess, which is why their side is declaring victory. Trump's side is declaring victory because it says nothing. It can say whatever you want it to because it's idiotic. But the judge pulls it up. It says here, be prepared to share what it can. And they're like, well, that's right. And we are. This is what we can share with you. We're doing what they said. You say that facilitate should be limited to domestic obstacles, but you don't cite any law there. Well, we cite from the INS manual, Your Honor. That's where it came from. But you don't cite to one authority for your definition of facilitate. What does that even mean? You're only referring to domestic obstacles. Is that fair? That's fair, right? No, Your Honor, I don't believe so. I cite the ICE policy directive. In fact, it's a term of art in the immigration context. Like, that's probably why they used it. Well, I need evidence in this regard. To date, what the record shows is that nothing has been done. I've asked for daily reports, and I've gotten very little info of any value. Your Honor, there have been significant steps. It was raised at the highest levels yesterday in office. Trump had a meeting with Bukele. They were there. It was hilarious. Judge says, well, the Trump people have never responded to the question. And we pointed this out yesterday. Like, oh, shoot, they're not answering. What steps have you taken? Why don't the defendants just ask? She asks, will you release him? Just ask. Well, Judge, because we don't want him released. Neither does El Salvador. That's why. She says, what happened at the Oval Office is not before the court. And my order was a very simple directive. It is only asking for things that the Supreme Court said I'm entitled to. Now, I don't consider what happened yesterday at the Oval Office as any evidence before this court. Trump's attorney, Drew, says, Your Honor, the issue specifically was raised yesterday. What are you talking about? with the highest authority in El Salvador. The president was here. We got his position. His position was, we're not fond of releasing terrorists. You heard it from the man himself. So what are you yelling at us for? Judge says, well, that's a non-responsive answer, Bukele. You listening, Nayeeb? Non-responsive to Paula. Whatever you wish for me to take from it, she says, it's not a direct response, nor is the quip about smuggling someone into the U.S. This judge is not happy with him. Maybe she'll hold him in contempt. Says, if you were removing domestic barriers, there would be no smuggling, right? And like Pam Bondi was like, yeah, we'll get you an airplane. 2 misguided ships passing in the night, okay? It's not smuggling at all. So the judge says, well, we'll proceed to discovery. If I make a finding of contempt, we'll go from there. Now, I'm not saying one way or the other because I don't have the facts before me yet. But the transcript you gave me of the Oval Office interview doesn't answer those questions at all. And what have you done to secure his release and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador, which was not improper at all? What have you done? What are you planning to do? I've got nothing. Well, the DOJ says, well, we do think that that transcript was a very important step. Oh, that's great. They're like, Your Honor, we got a transcript. They didn't even write it, right? It's not even official. It's from rev.com. They found a website link on rev.com who transcribed it. Like, well, they had a meeting. They don't care. Statement from Bondi says, she said, we will facilitate the return if Bukele sends him. She's going to send an airplane, Pam. Thanks for that. Judge says, she's going to do it a conventional way, she says. All right, that's it. Now, there are no business hours, okay? We're following the legal rules here. Judge says, we're doing 2 weeks of intense discovery, targeted. You're going to answer their questions. And if the gangbang lawyers go too far, you just tell me. If they're asking for too much information, you tell me and I'll call it fair. And if you don't abide by the rules and you don't give them what they're asking for, then they're going to tell me and I'll call it. Trump's DOJ Drew says, Your Honor, we just filed a declaration that we just read here from Mazzara. She says, well, first, we're not there. Okay, so hold off. Says Abrego Garcia is not in the U.S. I ordered him to be here. So what do you want me to know? Is that answered in there? Your Honor, well, we gave you the update. So says Drew, we believe that update satisfies what the Supreme Court told us to do. We are facilitating exactly within the meaning of the immigration law. We're doing it right now. We said we'd we're happy to facilitate. If he wants to show up, we'll deport him again. No problem. Well, have you done it? No, Your Honor. If you haven't done it, then it's not relevant, she says, snapping at him. Your Honor, facilitate just means removing domestic barriers. That's all. It's in the statute. It's in the manual. We have a narrow interpretive dispute for which discovery is not necessary. You don't need to go into all this stuff. We're facilitating it according to the manual, and we're doing everything that the Supreme Court told us to do. Judge says, I disagree with you. Now, I'm prepared to issue an order which expands on my view on the meaning of the word facilitate. So I'll explain what it means. And we will operate within the parameters of that ruling. And it's consistent with what SCOTUS said and with what's common in immigration practice. And so your characterization, Trump, is not bound in fact. And I need facts here. Trump's DOJ says, Your Honor, facilitate only refers to domestic obstacles. It's in the manual. That's all we can do. Okay. Immigration is a domestic issue. It's not foreign policy. That foreign policy stuff is not in the manual. It's only, she says it can be. Well, it can be case dependent, says the judge. It can be case specific. In this case specifically, SCOTUS has made clear this is not in the ether out there. This is not a pure law situation. You need to ensure the case is handled the way it would have been handled according to the ICE manual. And it was handled appropriately, right? The invocation, the proclamation of alien enemies changed this guy's status, made his withholding no longer valid, and he got deported. It was handled appropriately. The Supreme Court just got a wrong brief from a poison pill DOJ attorney that was never valid. You have tools in your toolkit going back several, and once I think the Supreme Court knows that, which is why they say, well, go back down and facilitate it, like clarify what your injunction is. Then the injunction will be clearly invalid, and then Trump can continue to do this, which is not comply with an illegal order. You have tools in your toolkit, she says. Going back several years, the government has taken positions on what facilitate means. You have done it in other cases. The question is, what are you going to do here? And so the facts need to be developed. The DOJ says, Your Honor, if you're going to issue an order that requires discovery, well, we would ask that you stay that order so that we can seek a timely appeal of this, because we're obviously going to do that. No, you don't get additional time. SCOTUS has already spoken. They already issued their ruling. There's nothing to appeal here. I want 2 weeks of targeted discovery, and you're going to answer these questions. DOJ says, well, Your Honor, maybe we can start with the interrogatories first. We can ask these questions, and then we can define the scope of this discovery, because we don't think that you're going to get into anything that you want to. Okay, we're going to call executive privilege and all sorts of protections that limit you, even, attorney-client protections and a bunch of other things that you're not going to get. Separation of powers arguments and tons of stuff. So if this court wants to issue an additional injunction, we want to understand what the court has in mind. Oh, she's getting mad. It's just not that difficult, okay? You may want to make it difficult because getting to the facts may not be favorable for you. Oh, discovery will give me a factual predicate for contempt to see if the defendants, Trump, are acting in good faith or not. And it will give you that opportunity. And we're going to do it in a targeted way. And we're not going to take a whole lot of time. DOJ says, Your Honor, well, we don't even think an Article 3 judge has the authority to require discovery of foreign sovereigns. You can't make El Salvador give us information, give you information, make us tell them to give us information. Well, nothing I've said here does that, okay? We're talking in generalities. You talking in generalities is simply delaying the process that we have to go through. And we're going to determine, have you done what my orders require? And if not, have you acted in good faith? Your Honor, we think you're going to have a difficult time getting this information because of separation of powers, and you don't have a right to come in. And just like we couldn't come into your courtroom and rummage through your files and all of those things, you can't come into our house and tell us how to do our job. You're not the president or the executive branch, so no. Judge says, well, I'm not ordering you to release him yet. I'm not there yet. Let's see if you do it, Judge. Why not? Why aren't you there? Just do it. Like, if you think you have the power to do it, why are you letting this poor guy rot away in CCOT? An innocent man, an American Maryland man. Why not, Judge? You're not there yet? How come? Do it. Do it. Because you won't. I will abide by the law, but we're not there yet. Yeah, that's right. We're not going to get there either. I'm just going to go back to what SCOTUS said is squarely within my prerogative to do, which is nothing, which is to respect the due deference of the executive branch. Trump's DOJ says, okay, well, I understand your position. We disagree because the question of what facilitate means is a pure question of law, and our interpretation is what we are elected to do, and it's not illegal. And so she says, I understand your position, and I'm prepared in a written order to reject it. Probably already wrote it. She published it. We'll read it. Now, at the end of the day, I'll issue the order. This is what the district courts are principally authorized to do. I'll be the referee, she says. I'll issue a certain number of interrogatories, which are questions to each side. I'll give the plaintiffs opportunity to take depositions of the defendants, okay, which is going to be just amazing. So Trump, I don't know who was going to come down here. They're going to call Pam Bondi down here to sit for a deposition. This is going to get wild because they're going to refuse all this crap. And then they're going to say they're violating a court. And it's all about some foreign terrorist gangbanger. Incredible. This is what the Democrats are hanging their hats on. Says, if you have objections, put them with specificity rules required. You engage in good faith, meet and confers. And I'll explain how you get expedited review of these disputes. I'll explain how through letters, how we'll do this. Then I'll hold a conference to decide. We'll get through this in 2 weeks. And if we don't, that'll be an issue in itself. We're going to have all of these depositions completed by 4/23. So they're going to haul people in. DOJ says, okay, well, we understand the court's position. Judge says, and by the way, Mr. Cerna, There are 3 additional affiants, all of which told me, based on personal knowledge, certain facts. Well, Your Honor, we're not prepared to make objections at this time. One is a GC of ICE. Are you talking about privilege? Yes. Okay, well then lay that out as soon as possible. You already put him up as an affiant in a file in a prior document. Well, I don't know their availability. Like if you're going to want us to bring all these people in, well, they can cancel their vacation. Cancel it. I expect all hands on deck. It won't be a convenience issue, okay? Maybe depositions could be in a courthouse, so I can call balls and strikes. Your Honor, we don't think discovery is appropriate because this is a legal dispute. It's about what the word facilitate means. It's not a fact-finding endeavor. So we'd like you to flesh out what facilitate means so we can just operate that way. Well, I hear you. You are going to have some written guidance and your objection is preserved. How about you, gangbang Kilmar lawyers? We agree with your plan, Judge. This is great. We're getting everything we want. No further statement. Judge says, okay, 15 interrogatories, 15 requests for productions. If you don't need 15, you don't proud 15. Keep it targeted, keep it tight. 4 depositions apiece, up to 2 additional. Now, my target is that at the conclusion, the Kilmar lawyers will supplement their motion, and then you'll respond by 428, and defendants will respond by 430. Now, I'm going to put it all in writing, and the hearing is concluded. And so, great reporting from Roger Parloff. We appreciate Roger for sharing the insight. Of course, if you want to follow them, we'll repost that at the top of our timeline, and you can give Roger a follow. But Judge Zinnes also came out and issued her order fresh out of the oven. We were waiting for it to get drafted, and here is what she's given us. So the judge is ordering discovery. She's not happy about this, and she's going to try to catch them in some sort of contempt trap, just like Boasberg is doing. And here is what she has published today, saying, to promote the just, speedy, and inexpensive resolution of this case, the following procedure will be followed with respect to discovery motions, like motions to compel, protective orders, and more. Any party seeking to file a motion must first serve it on the opposition with a brief description and a summary of the relevant parts. The letter should include the position of all parties, and parties shall attach the letter to the letter the disputes of the interrogatories or the request for productions. So then, upon filing of the letter, the court will schedule an expedited telephone conference to discuss all of it. Now, it does not take the place of their obligation to meet and confer. And so if we don't have issues resolved during the telephone call, the court will set a briefing schedule. And so this is informal, but it is being docketed as an order. All right, so that's all we got. So not a lot of additional clarity. And we were hoping that she would give us more details. Perhaps it is right here, signed by Paula Zinnes. Do we have another filing that has dropped? Yes, we do. Okay, so here is a much bigger order. Hopefully that gives us some explanation on what facilitate means, fresh out of the oven. She writes, all right, pending, Judge Kilmar, Judge Zinnes says, pending before this court is Kilmar Garcia's motion for expedited discovery. They seek discovery of any terms of agreement or anything that the U.S. government has with CCOT. Okay, so like a contract for the illegals. They also want discovery about his current physical location, custodial status, what steps, if any, the government has taken to facilitate his return. Now, Trump opposes this request because it's not consistent with the word facilitating, which is what the Supreme Court ordered. And there are also other constitutional infirmities that exist. Separation of powers and more. Now, for the following reasons, Judge Zinnes grants the motion for discovery. She tells us upon a showing of good cause, she can make this order and writes, it is undisputed that Abrego Garcia is entitled to injunctive relief for reasons previously discussed and affirmed without exception. Which I think that's inaccurate. Okay, she's just saying that the Supreme Court is saying that there is no exception. There is an exception. They wrote it in there. It's with due deference to the executive branch. You don't get everything you want. If you got everything you wanted, the Supreme Court would have said, order him. They would have ordered him out. They didn't. So it's just ridiculous. Now, as to the scope of the relief, there you go. The Supreme Court unanimously affirmed that the order properly requires the government to facilitate the release from custody. What does that word mean? The release from custody, to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. But guess what? He was not improperly sent to El Salvador. That's their position. To that end, the Supreme Court forewarned the government, writes Zenas, that they should be prepared to share what it can concerning the steps that it has taken. Now, this court, in turn, ordered no more than what the Supreme Court endorsed, that they take all steps to facilitate their return as soon as possible. And within that remedy is the release from custody. So to advance that, she demanded the 3 questions be answered. We read them yesterday. Where is he? What are you doing to get him out? What additional steps will you do until he's out? And that information is wholly consistent with ascertaining what you have done to facilitate his release. Now, notably, she's going to explain facilitate. It means to make the occurrence of something easier, to render less difficult. She went to Black's Law Dictionary. Merriam-Webster writes to make easier or less difficult, to free from difficulty or impediment. She goes to Oxford and more. So she says there, it's easy. So therefore, you remain obligated at a minimum to take steps available to them toward aiding, assisting, and making easier his release from custody in El Salvador and resuming his status quo ante. Now, they've already done that. If he shows up, they'll deport him again. That's how they'll facilitate him into America. That's the step that they take at minimum. But the record reflects they've done nothing at all. No, it doesn't actually. They just submitted it yesterday. Now, it's not to your liking that we'll just rearrest him and deport him again, but that's how we're going to facilitate it. Instead, they obliquely suggest that facilitate is limited to taking all of the domestic obstacles out of the way. But the fallacy is twofold. They say, well, first, in the immigration context, writes the judge, facilitating the return of those wrongly deported can and has included more extensive governmental efforts endorsed in prior precedent and homeland publications, but he wasn't erroneously deported. The Alien Enemies Act overrides that lower level district judge's order of withholding of removal. Thus, the court cannot credit facilitating the ordered relief is as limited as Trump suggests. And secondly, and more fundamentally, Trump appears to have done nothing to aid in the release. To ensure that his case is handled as it would have been, they just said they would have handled it. If he was not returned to El Salvador, they would have just picked him up and returned him to El Salvador again. Thus, the attempt to skirt this issue by redefining facilitate runs contrary to law and logic. I hope she explains. Says, turning to the factors, she didn't, as it would have been. All right. Now, turning to the factors supporting expedited discovery, she says, first, my injunction is active and enforceable. And the discovery is relatively narrow in scope. And we need an immediate evidentiary hearing. And so the court will permit discovery as set forth below. Saying it's necessary. They're refusing to disclose what they're doing and to return him to the status quo. And it's not burdensome on the government. The request for discovery is timely. And he is inexplicably detained in CCOT. It's not inexplicable. It's totally explained. We've explained it 15 times here. And the judge has gotten the explanation via declaration. 6, discovery must proceed without delay. He's entitled to due protections that have been denied him. He got them. He had a full trial and an appeal. And to be free from risk of grave injury resulting from his detention in CCOT. 7th, the absence of a dismissal motion is of no moment. And so the court will permit expedited discovery. So here are the details about his physical location, what steps they've taken to return him, what they will do to facilitate his return. Okay, and facilitate in both of those. So we got deadlines, Wednesday, April 16th, Wednesday, April 16th, another one, Wednesday, April 23rd. So notice the depositions for all these people. Everybody who submitted a declaration, Cerna, Katz, Kazak, Mazzara. And they may get 15 interrogatories against Trump and 15 requests for productions against Trump. And then they shall serve their answers back on them no later than Monday, April 21st. So the floodgates are going to open. These are all orders. Trump is going to, I think, dig in and not give them much of anything. To streamline review of these objections, the court will file a separate letter about disputes. At the conclusion of this, you shall supplement what you found and ask for more relief. And if Trump fails to engage in good faith, you can seek sanctions on Trump. So ordered by Judge Paula Zenas, rhymes with, and you can hear how angry she is. So that order came down. We'll see what Trump says. I'm sure there will be immediate appeals on all of this, and we'll just wait for those to drop. But we went through, we saw what it looked like outside there. Here was Pam Bondi talking about this on with Jesse Waters.
Jesse, you know, when you're listening to all these liberal reporters, they keep calling him a Maryland man. He's not a Maryland man. He's part of a foreign terrorist organization. He's a member of MS-13 who, as you laid out in your monologue, came to this country and committed just gang acts. He was caught, and he was two judges, an immigration judge and an appellate judge, ruled that he was an MS-13 member, as well as ICE's testimony. Yet his attorneys are saying he's not affiliated with the gang. They're wrong, and he has no right to be there. But for an extra step in paperwork, just like you said, he would go right back to El Salvador, which is his home country, where he belongs. And President Bukele does not want to give him back to the United States, nor do we want him back.
All right, so that's it.
All right, so that's Pam Bondi. We also had Caroline Levitt explaining how all of this works to the folks in the media. This was clipped over via the Vigilant Fox on X. Great follow. Make sure you're giving them a follow. Here is what Caroline Levitt had to say when asked about this during today's press briefing.
I also want to thank your press office for releasing that information that you cited up there regarding the ICE arrests over the last couple of days. And I have them right here, but what I might ask is, why not release the same information for those who were deported to El Salvador?
Well, first of all, the information was released by the Department of Homeland Security. The individuals on the flights to El Salvador are foreign terrorists, and those are counterterrorism operations. They are much different than the arrests and final order of removals that you see on a day-to-day basis that law enforcement agents are conducting around the country.
That information was not, to that detail, was not released by DHS, though.
I just told you the reason. It was a counterterrorism operation, a deportation of foreign terrorists, not illegal criminals who have been convicted of heinous crimes living in our American communities. Two different things. Foreign terrorist, illegal immigrant criminal, two different things, two different definitions. You should look them up.
Yeah, maybe read a book for once, dum-dum. Look up the definition, and you'll understand there's a distinction. When Papusa Boy came in, he was flying under the radar. Actually, not really, right? He was held non-bondable until Joe Biden and others came in and changed everything. And then a lot of these types of people got released. But I think his withholding, I forget when that was. That might have been under the Trump administration. But my point is, the withholding of removal was for a situation that, first of all, is no longer in existence in El Salvador because Papusa business is no longer under attack by that gang. But MS-13 has now been declared what they are. We're actually applying the appropriate labels to what has been happening to our country, and that changes what is allowable under the law. And an illegal alien who is in our country illegally went back home to his home country, and we're hopeful the media looks it up. There's a difference between a Papusa Boy and an MS-13 member, and he's gone accordingly. All right, so that was a spicy day today in Judge Zenas' courtroom, and it's only going to get hotter, no doubt. But here's what's happening from the Democrats. They are having a rough time, as we will see right now. Democrats are scrambling to try to figure out how to respond to Trump, and for some reason, they've thrown all of their eggs into the basket of defending Kilmar Abrego Garcia. We got Hakeem Jeffries now on with Inside Jen Psaki, MSNBC's hit show. You can see the show logo down there. And they were talking about this. What can they actually do other than just scream and shout about it? Not much. Maybe impeach Trump, maybe pass some legislation, pass some resolution. But they're freaked. They're scrambling on this one. They think it's a winning issue for some reason. We saw J.D. Vance noted this happening, saying the entire American media and the left-wing industrial complex has decided the most important issue today is that the Trump administration deported an MS-13 gangbanger and an illegal alien, both of which adjudicated in the courts. And it was wild. We had Hakeem. Let me just show you all of these other posts that came out from everybody. Okay, Richie Torres was out. We got Pencil Neck Schiff, who came out. We got tons of these people. Even Bernie Sanders was out here. But here's how it started with Hakeem, and he's kind of even admitting here, there's not much we can do other than get out there and sway public opinion. Here's the Democrats.
What, if any, power, for people who are watching at home, do you have? What power do you have and other Democratic members to compel, push the government to bring him home?
Well, we have the power to shape public sentiment, and at the end of the day,
really.
Making sure that public sentiment in this case understands that the treatment of Mr. Abrego Garcia, is unconscionable, unacceptable, and un-American.
No, it's not.
And if it can happen here,
allowing illegals to invade our country was un-American. You're un-American.
It can happen anywhere. And
it should happen everywhere. Anybody who invades another person's country should be deported immediately. It should happen everywhere is the standard rule.
It's going to be incredibly important for every member of Congress. Certainly, we plan to do this on the Democratic side, both in the House and in the Senate.
What?
To intensify the pressure on the Trump administration to comply with the Supreme Court's directive, and
what's their
the
directive?
Supreme Court and/or the federal district court actually needs to enforce its order.
Oh, actually enforce the order. So that sounds like he's pushing Judge Zenas, rhymes with, to issue a contempt finding and issue sanctions. So here's what else was happening from the Democrats. Richie Torres came out, and he is now saying any American could be abducted. Any American could be deported and tortured under Trump. These guys are just nuts. There is zero basis for this kind of claim. Yeah, because first of all, if you're an American citizen, then you're not going to get deported. If you're an illegal alien, that's when you get deported. Here's Richie.
Salvador, who refuses to comply with an order from a federal court to release someone who's been wrongfully deported, there should be geopolitical consequences, and those consequences should be swift and severe.
Whoa.
It should include the suspension of relations with the United States and the termination of foreign assistance.
Wow. So he says there should be serious consequences for this, I guess. And Bernie Sanders is also screaming about this. Now, Bernie got roasted in the comments, and we'll look at some of them because they're great. Here, Bernie said, in defiance of the Supreme Court and without any evidence, the White House claims that Kilmar is a terrorist who was sent to the right place. He was. He's from there. This is a blatant lie, says Bernie. He is innocent of what? Being an illegal? He was already adjudicated as removable. He cannot be allowed to rot in an El Salvadorian jail. He must be brought home. Now, he then flagged Justice Sotomayor's decision, lying about a 9-0 decision. And he is a terrorist. He was found to have been connected to MS-13 in prior court findings and was removed accordingly. Now, people like Sarah Rose are saying, hey, he's a citizen of El Salvador, you freaking retard. Excuse my language. I tried to censor the first word and I forgot the second word. Who talked about oligarchy at Coachella at an $1,100 seat? Why don't you take him into your home? Shout out to Sarah Rose. Are you stupid, Bernie? He's a human trafficking, gangbanging terrorist, okay? Lots of comments here. The only liar is you. The reason he initially wanted protection is fear of his rival gang. That gang is now gone. But he's still from El Salvador, came here illegally, didn't apply for asylum for years, and now he's back. Someone else, Mark, says, he is from El Salvador. He's in his home country now. He can petition the government and the courts of El Salvador. But it's amazing you care more about illegal aliens than American citizens. Andrew Wilkow says, being the party of MS-13 is really going to help you people in the midterms. No doubt. No doubt. Yeah. And Mrs. Jensen, I really can't imagine being a U.S. senator and telling another nation and their president that one of their citizens is innocent. Bukele's made clear He's a terrorist and gang member based off his activity there. And so keep those comments coming against Bernie Sanders, and shout out to Sarah Rose. Are you stupid? Yes, Sarah, he is stupid. So that was Bernie, and they're latching on to this. Even Chuck Schumer did this one. He said, a threat to one is a threat to all. MS-13 members, Tren de Aragua gangbangers, like, that's good. Yeah, they should feel threatened. They are under threat now. Schumer blasts Bukele comments. Calls on Trump to return Kilmar to the United States. It's crazy. They're going wild on this one. Says Bukele's comment is pure nonsense. The law is clear. Due process was grossly violated. No, it wasn't. The Supreme Court has clearly spoken that the Trump administration must facilitate and effectuate the return. It should be returned immediately. Facilitate. They didn't say effectuate. They didn't say effectuate because otherwise he could drop bombs on them. Right? No, they said facilitate. That's a misquote. He's perverting everything like he normally does. Due process and the rule of law are cornerstones. Really? How about the due process at the border when you guys invaded our country over the last 4 years? A threat to one is a threat to all. Oh, well, that's how we feel about you there, Chuck. So that's pretty interesting from Chuck. Now, Pelosi also came out. They all got the memo. They said that they smeared Kilmar Abrego as a terrorist. Wild. SCOTUS ordered his return, but instead, the fellow administration is defying Trump. It's defying SCOTUS. Quartering, shout out to the Quartering, says, yeah, well, he is a terrorist. So, shout out to Andrew Branca. SCOTUS did not order a terrorist Abrego returned. Is exactly right. No, he did. No, they did not. So the lies continue, and shout out to people who are responding over there. Even Pencil Neck Shift made a video, and man, his neck does look like a pencil. What the heck's going on? Is it the angle? Is it the sweater? It does look like a pencil. So he wrote a whole statement. The constitutional crisis is here. The reason I'm sharing these with you is just so you can see. They're rallying the troops around this dude. Absolutely wild. This is like their cause du jour. And even Chris Murphy, he's making videos. I want to tell you why this case should matter to you. Pay attention. The one power you cannot give is the power to expel someone. That's our key check against autocracy. We are watching it disappear. Man, they're freaked. They're like as mad as the USAID money. It's like, first of all, their money's getting cut off. Now their voters are all getting deported, and they're in big trouble. The left must be fuming mad that this is all happening. Now, Chuck Grassley was also catching it. Chuck Grassley was out, and people in this meetup were asking Chuck, are you going to bring this terrorist back to Iowa? Some of the Iowans want him back.
Are you going to bring that guy back from El Salvador? Yeah. Are you? Yeah. Why not?
Well, because that's not a power of Congress.
Supreme Court said to bring him back.
They did not say that, sir. They did not say that. And when you're talking in a public setting, it's good advice to take the cheeseburger out of your mouth so we can hear you.
And the president is the Constitution. He's defined the Constitution. You're on the Judiciary Committee.
Trump don't care.
If I get an order to pay a check for $1,200 and I just say no, does that stand up? Because he's got an order from the Supreme Court and he's just said no.
Yeah. He just said, screw it.
I'll be able to answer your question.
You ignored my letter.
Guatemala is or El Salvador is an independent country. The president
Speak up, please. We can't hear you.
The president of that country is not subject to
Maybe you should get a hearing aid, lady.
or U.S. Supreme Court.
Trump wanted to bring him back. I'm pissed.
We're paying him to keep him down there. We don't have to pay him.
I'm pissed. We want gangbangers back in Iowa. Oh my gosh. And they're out there abusing a nice elderly senator saying, can you speak up? We can't hear you. Wow. So that's the Democrats. I hope they continue that. I hope it plays out for them well over these next little bit, because it's placating the hard left of their party. This is an issue that I think we can win on for the next several generations. And just to be clear, the administrative error nonsense, this shouldn't have been deported stuff, was a poison pill that was inserted by Ezra Ruvini. Irza Ruvini, who is the name of the DOJ attorney who was fired, or suspended rather, excuse me, suspended and in big trouble for not actually articulating the position of the administration appropriately, calling it an error when it wasn't. It was canceled, and the fake news is spreading a hoax in the alternative.
Is Gitmo still open? Are there any illegal immigrants who have been taken to Guantanamo Bay today, or has that prison been closed?
No, it's wide open. Gitmo is open. There are a number of foreign terrorist aliens that are being housed at Gitmo, awaiting final removal to another destination. But what I want to be very clear on,
Can you tell me how
Bill,
many?
No, I cannot. That's operationally sensitive information.
Dozens or more?
It's a large number. The exact number is operationally sensitive to do with military and other considerations relating to the security of those who are there and the security of those who are operating the facility. But I want to be very, very clear about this, Bill. We've been living through a hoax. Nobody was mistakenly sent to El Salvador. He was ordered deported from this country in 2019. He's an illegal alien. His home nation is El Salvador. That is where he belongs.
And his withholding of removal was overridden and statutorily prohibited after the status change and the proclamation came out. Exacted by President Trump with the backing of Congress via the Alien Enemies Act, overrides on in the interest of national security and American homeland safety that judge. There is no withholding allowed for gangbangers or terrorists, rather, in America. He was a gangbanger who got elevated into a terrorist status based on his affiliation with the organization, and now he's gone. So forget the hoax, forget the poison pill that was inserted to say he shouldn't have been deported there. The removal capability was overridden by the other two co-equal branches of government who have the power authorized by Congress to do it, and they did. So good stuff there. Now, one final segment on the day, and this is getting interesting because the Democrats are losing it. The Democrats are losing it so badly that they're now contemplating criminal charges against President Trump or anybody else who is out there enacting the administration policies. This was a clip shared over from Western Lensman with former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley, who is saying that attorney generals are now meeting and figuring out how they can charge Trumpers with crimes. And it's not just this one take, okay? There's this other representative from Congress. She's a Democrat from California who's going to come and explain. They have these meetings every single week behind the scenes to figure out how they can do this. They've already done this before, so it's not crazy land. They concocted schemes to rig 2020. Then they concocted additional schemes to rig 2024. And they used the law to do it in both instances. And 2016, they used the law to do it too. So they're obviously doing this. And this is why I think guys like Dan Bongino, Todd Blanche, right, all of the people, Alina Abba, who kind of materialized and gone into the administration are real heroes because of the sacrifice that they'll have to make when they come out of the administration and they face these lunatics who are all plotting to imprison them all constantly. So here is what the governor, former governor, had to say about it. Let's charge Trump and ICE and everybody else with literal kidnapping for protecting America and getting illegals out of our country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I think the attorney generals play a really important role right now. I think it's only a matter of time before one of them figures out how to file state kidnapping charges against those that are abducting people who are in this country legally and sending them to this new concentration camp that Donald Trump laughs about having created.
They're calling it a concentration camp now. Okay, this dude's going to run for president.
In El Salvador. Attorney generals are going to play a critically important role in these days ahead fighting this fascist moment in American history.
Yeah, a fascist moment in American history. Our country was invaded. These people are illegals. They do not have a right to be here. Kilmar did not have a right to be here. He was ordered removed. There was just a withholding to El Salvador. His status changed, and now he's gone. He could have self-deported and gone on his own accord, but he didn't. He had plenty of notice. So now they're turning this into criminal. It's a criminal attack. It's a fascistic state. They're nuts. They've gone mental, but they're serious about this. Here was that other woman, Representative Laura Friedman from California, doing the same.
Every single week, we have a litigation working group where a large group of us, and I'm talking there's maybe 75 members of the House, sit down every single week with the AGs to talk about legal strategy. This is all going on every single week behind the scenes. It is nonstop talk, nonstop introduction of bills and legislation, nonstop being on social media as much as we can without being throttled and without the crazy analytics, and doing all these things.
Every week, 75 plus, meeting to concoct lawfare schemes to go and continue to attack the president. Now, they did this many other times, and it's backfired on them repeatedly. I think it's kind of a dumb thing to be fighting for other citizens of other countries against your own citizens in your own country, and to be dedicating all your time to that because you've got some lunatics in your party who demand it. Now, Jake Auchincloss said this, who is a congressman from Massachusetts. He said the following on X. He said, habeas corpus is the cornerstone of Americans' freedom. If Trump will not return Kilmar, the judiciary should send the U.S. Marshals to El Salvador to go get him. Okay? Congressman is saying, let's go invade a foreign nation to go bring back an illegal alien who has no right to be in our country at all. Never did. What? So he's trying to usurp Trump, who is in charge of our foreign policy? Sounds like this guy is actually arguing for an insurrection of the executive branch and trying to violate the due deference that is owed to them. Pretty insane from a congressman. Now, in addition, we've got this weird congressman, Van Hollen, also clipped via Western Lensman, said that Van Hollen is going to go down to El Salvador. He thinks he is 007. I'm going to get him out of there and come back to my constituents in America and tell them I'm fighting for MS-13 gangbangers. Here's what he said.
This week to show solidarity with his family. As you indicated, the Trump administration itself has admitted that he was abducted and sent to this prison in error, and he should get his due process.
No, that was a poison pill from a suspended DOJ attorney who did a terrible job actually interpreting what the administration did and communicating that via court filings. And you guys latched onto that when in reality, the power existed to remove him. Stephen Miller has finally corrected the record on that at last.
They show no intent of doing anything to bring him back anytime soon. That is for sure. If by midweek, I mean, this could be tomorrow, nothing happens, you go to El Salvador, do you have a hope of leaving with him when you come back, or what can you accomplish there?
Nothing.
Kate, I hope to meet with officials of the government of El Salvador. I don't know if the president is going to be in country at that time. I also hope to visit this notorious prison to see Abrego Garcia, to let him know that his family and friends are very worried about him, as am I. I think that the situation for both the Trump administration and the president of El Salvador is unsustainable. Because the Supreme Court, as you reported, by 9-0, has said the Trump administration has to facilitate his return. And you have the president of El Salvador saying, well, I don't have the power to release him. Both things are untrue. The president could, of course, facilitate his return. After all, the United States is paying El Salvador money for this prison. And of course, the president of El Salvador could release him. So at some point, I think this becomes unsustainable. People are going to keep calling for his release because the Trump administration itself has admitted he was wrongfully whisked out of the country. And
and they corrected that. He was not wrongfully whisked out of the country. He was removed, and he had a lot of due process before that removal took effect. And now he's back home with his people. And all of the papusa nonsense about he's under attack from his co-gang, his rival gang, it's not a situation there anymore. And so if these people want to make an argument that there should be an exception for him, like he was illegal, but we should have him in our country anyways, they can make that argument, but they haven't made that argument. But that is the argument that they should be making, because he is an illegal. He had no status here. The removal to El Salvador, saying that was an error, is also a red herring. You'd be okay if we just removed him to Venezuela or Colombia or Guatemala? No, they'd be screaming about that too. They want an exception to the rule. They want lawlessness is really what they want. They want, if they can crack this one, and they know that this one has that error word that's been floated out there, if they can crack this one, then they can neuter the law across the board for all of the illegals, because then illegal doesn't mean anything. As long as you can come and say, well, he's like an electrician and a barber now, and he's got a wife and he's got kids who's a citizen and he impregnated her too, and then you can just say, well, the law doesn't matter. We should have an exception. And he can make up some claim about pupusas and asylum status. We're done with that crap. All right. So he's gone. And I hope he goes down and visits there. He can hang out with him. He can have a bunk right next to him if he wants, for all I care. Here was Caroline Levitt explaining that this dude is not coming back. And the fact that you guys in the media can't figure it out, and the fact that you're still preening for an illegal alien in our country is ridiculous.
Still going off the El Salvador questions. Yesterday in the Oval Office, administration officials made it very clear that El Salvador is responsible for Mr. Abrego Garcia. Yet El Salvador's president said we're not going to do anything with him. So my question is, who is responsible for this man and where he's going to end up?
Well, no. First of all, President Bukele said that he is not going to smuggle a foreign terrorist back into the United States of America, as many in this room in the Democrat Party seemingly want him to do. Abrego Garcia was a foreign terrorist. He is an MS-13 gang member. He was engaged in human trafficking. He illegally came into our country. And so deporting him back to El Salvador was always going to be the end result. There is never going to be a world in which this is an individual who's going to live a peaceful life in Maryland, because he is a foreign terrorist and a MS-13 gang member. Not only have we confirmed that, President Bukele yesterday in the Oval Office confirmed that as well. So he went back to his home country, where he will face consequences for his gang affiliation and his engagement in human trafficking. I'm not sure what is so difficult about this for everyone in the media to understand. And it's appalling, truly appalling, that there has been so much time covering this alleged human trafficker and this gang member, MS-13 gang member. It's truly striking to me.
It is, but that's what they love. They love the diminishment of America and the evaporation of our laws, the diluting of it, right? The watering down of law and order. You can just come into the country, and as long as you break into someone's house and you make a bed and you clean a little bit, you dust off some stuff and you like paint the walls or something maybe, and while you're doing all of that, you maybe also sell some fentanyl or human traffic or whatever. As long as you do those things, then the law should just allow you to do whatever you want, and we can't enforce our own borders or our own laws against terrorist or drug gang bangers in America. And so she is rightfully furious, as are many of us. It's nice to see her throw that on display. Shout out to Caroline Levitt. Now, Trump also said this, moments ago, yesterday, the illegal criminal who was allowed into our country by crooked Joe Biden was convicted of the heinous murder of Rachel Morin in another case where yet another illegal is killing another American. Rachel was a beautiful mother of 5 who's now dead from Maryland, and her life was taken at the hands of a monster who should never have been here in the first place. They're like, yeah, but Rob, he was coming to build a better life, and he's like a barber now. He's like an electrician. His like wife, ACLU, he's trans, political attacks, papusa. The fake news should be focusing on the beautiful life and the tragic death of this Maryland mother rather than the so-called Maryland father, who is actually an MS-13 gang member and foreign terrorist from El Salvador. We will never forget Rachel Morin, who are committed to protecting women like her across the country, and we will deport illegal murderers, the rapists, and the criminals. Make America great again and get the hell out of our country. So here is what CNN was saying, even confirming, according to Eric Doherty, that she's saying Trump is not violating the rule. They did not order the administration to return this dude back. They didn't. And Trump is in compliance. So all of the dumb senators who were like, we're going to go down to El Salvador because Trump's in violation of an order, pencil neck shift, constitutional crisis, constantly whining. They're lying to you. Even CNN can figure it out.
President Trump and President Bukele made it clear that Abrego Garcia will not be returned to the United States, despite this U.S. Supreme Court ruling saying that Trump had to facilitate his return. So are they just ignoring a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, or is the fact that the ruling was so mushy, in your words,
yes,
giving him an opening?
It's a technical term I learned in law school, Jake. Mushy. Look, they're working within the ambiguity that the Supreme Court justices
thanks, John
gave
Roberts.
them. They did not order the administration to return him to the United States.
Oh, they didn't.
They said that they need to facilitate this return. They could have said, we order him returned, but
Yep.
they didn't do that.
Nope.
So you heard the Attorney General. She was being very careful in the Oval Office when she was asked, would you help? She says, of course we'd provide a plane, right? Thereby facilitating whatever El Salvador is doing. The Supreme Court appeared to defer to the executive branch,
Yep.
given that this is an international matter. And you see, yes, it does look a little bit like a semantic game, but they are playing within the bounds of what the Supreme Court ruled. So no, they are not defying this order.
And take a listen to how White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller views it.
And a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the president could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador.
Stephen, you got the win. I don't know why he had to go so far, because what he's saying is not completely accurate. No, I'm talking to the kidnapping. All right. So the district court said that the administration needed to facilitate and effectuate the return of this man to the United States and gave a date. The Supreme Court says, yes, you need to facilitate this.
Not effectuate.
But when it comes to effectuating, making it happen, they said this needs to go back down to the lower court. They need to clarify what that meant. And they warned the lower court, you need to be deferential to the executive branch, because we're talking about foreign affairs. And they gave no deadline.
Nope.
So again, they're not running afoul, but Stephen's summary of the case there, the holding, it's not exactly accurate.
Well, it's very favorable to him, right? It's they said have deference, and there was no order in there to release him other than to facilitate it. So if there's not an order to release him, that's a big victory if that's what they want. So Trump is saying, no, we're facilitating it all they want. They could have easily just said, let him go. They didn't do it. And now the judge is like screaming about it, going to go through discovery and try to hold them in contempt, because she knows she can't order him to do anything. Otherwise, that would make her the president. That's separation of powers. And it's designed that way for a very good reason. Trump and the executive branch are politically accountable. If you don't like what they're doing with Kilmar, you can go vote against them. They can get obliterated in the midterms. They can get run out. People can scream to their Congress people, and they can impeach President Trump over that. That's why they are delegated with the execution of the law, so that we can hold them accountable. This judge is not. She doesn't get to run the country. That's illegal, unconstitutional, and even CNN can see it. So here is what Tom Homan said when he was out recently.
There are laws on the books that make it a criminal offense to shield or harbor illegal immigrants, like the sanctuary states that you leaders have been doing. Do you think they should be prosecuted with both said law and possibly put in prison?
Absolutely. And hold tight on that one, because it's coming. It's coming. I've been clear on that since day one.
There are laws on the books that make it a criminal
All right, let's
offense.
go. Tom Homan is not playing around. And of course, we have a great unity happening out there. While all these people are talking about these deportations of illegal aliens and gangbangers and more, the president is reaching out with an olive branch. Okay, we're not hateful to any groups who come into the country legally. You just can't come in illegally. In fact, if you come in legally, President Trump would like you to make America great again or in Spanish, Make America Grande otra vez. Here's the president learning how to speak some Spanish at the White House.
Mr. President, I'd like to teach you how to say, let's make America great again in Spanish. So, vamos a hacer América Grande otra vez.
America Grande otra vez.
Yeah!
Mr. President, I'd like...
Muy bien, Mr. President. We're making America Grande otra vez. And so, thank you, Mr. President. And if you're here legally and you want to make America great again, we want you to be here. Welcome to America. Thanks for following the rules. Thanks for being a part of this beautiful experiment. We're going to make America great again together. All right. And so if you're just joining us, thanks for doing that. But we want to give you a quick recap on what we talked about today because we had some fun stuff that we attended to. We had a full update on the Judge Zenas case, Rhymes with. She, of course, is presiding over the Kilmar situation. We looked at 8 U.S. Code 1231, talked about how Attorney General Pam Bondi has the discretion to say that somebody is removable and is no longer eligible to the withholding of removal under national security premises, which are areas of the law that the executive branch has apex power. Explained how that worked, and then went through the additional filings that got dropped. We saw Trump sent in some additional updates explaining that if you release this person, we will facilitate his return to America, no doubt. But what that facilitation is going to look like is just picking him up and deporting him again. So that was a lot of fun. If he shows up, we're going to remove him to a third country and terminate his withholding again. So that was happening today. Then we had the full hearing. Shout out to Roger Parloff, who broke down what happened in there. Judge is not happy, is now going to be ordering discovery, has ordered discovery. And so there'll be depositions and a bunch of filings. And so the Trump administration is going to dig in hard on this. They're going to deny this based on privilege and separation of powers and more. And so we're in for a fight. So we're looking forward to covering that. We also had updates from Pam Bondi and Caroline Leavitt speaking out on Kilmar, the deported terrorist. Then we learned about the Democrats and what they're doing, scrambling around, trying to figure out how to respond to this. They're going all in on Kilmar. Democrats love gangbangers. The prescription for them is just more gangbangers. And we got Hakeem talking about it. Richie was talking about it. Bernie was talking about it. Chuck Schumer. And look at this liar, by the way. He said, the Supreme Court has clearly spoken that Trump must facilitate and effectuate, right? Even CNN said, no, they didn't say that. Chuck, you liar. They didn't say effectuate. They said facilitate. They specifically left out effectuate. You're a liar, Chuck. You're a liar. Rephrase your statement. We also then saw this from Nancy Pelosi saying the same thing. Pencil neck Schiff. Chris Murphy, he's running for president for sure, 100%. We also got Grassley getting abused by Chunky Iowans and more. Even Miller is saying, look, there's a hoax out there. Don't buy it. And then we wrapped it up by talking about now how the Democrats are saying they should charge the officials with kidnapping, saying that the attorneys generals are meeting to talk about how they can create new lawfare against the president, and a lot more. We got senators going down to El Salvador, but Caroline Leavitt is educating the media on how insane they have become, spending all of their time and efforts fighting for an illegal who is, according to the U.S. government and to the El Salvador government, a gang member. He's now gone. They want him back. That is not happening. But now, my friends, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for subscribing to our channel. If you haven't already done that, we very much appreciate it. And thanks for inviting a friend or family member to come over and join us. It's better when we live stream together. Thanks for inviting them. All right, so now let's see who's here. And thank you for these amazing donos and comments. And man, you guys are awesome. We got some new membos coming too. So membos, great to see some amazing new membos. Membos will be back tomorrow morning, of course, for the membos only morning stream, 12 noon Eastern. We'll see you there. And then membos, we're going to do something a little cool tomorrow too. I'm also going to be doing an interview. I got invited to do an interview, and I think I can invite you to join in on that. Like there's a public feed for the private interview because it's not live. So we'll do that tomorrow. Hey, but what's up? We got this one. It's tax day, baby. Do you file your extensions or what? Oh, I hate taxes so much. Thanks for the reminder. Jeremy Pursley. What's up, Jeremy? Thank you for becoming a member. We'll see you tomorrow. Jeremy in the house. Milo Phone Bill says Senator Chris Van Hollen wants to rescue Papusa Boy from CCOT. An hour-and-a-half cab ride from San Salvador. How's that going to work? Yeah, and they have like no cell phone coverage or anything, so he's not even going to be able to tweet about it. Well, good luck to him. We'll see how he does. Nancy Kaya. What's up, Nancy? Thank you, Nancy, for becoming a membo. We'll see you tomorrow on the Membos Only morning stream, and grab the Membo stream from this morning. We talked about a bunch of other good stuff today. Sharpie Guy says, I sure had something to look forward to today, Robin watchers. Y'all, I know I was waiting for this one too. Yesterday, I was like excited like we were going to Disneyland before it became perverted. I was excited for it. And it was good. It was pretty good. It was pretty entertaining, no doubt. Knox is here. Hey, happy Taco Tuesday, all. Can't they just do a Zoom hearing for Kilmar? Why must he be in person? Most immigration hearings are on Zoom. Yeah, that's a good question. I think they were in person. Yeah, that was in person today. And there was no call-in line for that hearing in Judge Zenus's courtroom. Yeah. Hey, G-Men is here. What's up, G-Men? Says, had he left 6 years ago when he was supposed to, well, he wouldn't be in CCOT right now. Yeah, absolutely. And he had plenty of notice. Trump came in. They were deporting people. You should just go, especially if you've got questionable connections to gangs. Like, it's obvious. He stuck around. Now he's paying the price. He thought he could run around free his whole life in our country without any accountability. Got here, didn't apply for asylum. Got traffic tickets, didn't show up to court. Got withholding, thought he could just be free forever. No. Times have changed. Please leave. Sheila Poo. Trump asked during the press conference, and they said no. Yeah, we aren't asking again because we would just send him back again since this is a national security decision. Sorry, not sorry, Your Honor. Exactly right. Yeah, and that declaration today explained that brilliantly. No. We'll facilitate his return. As soon as he shows up to our border, we'll facilitate his deportation a second time. So you're welcome for that update. G-Men. Yeah, says there's a new law firm is there to join in on the gangbang lawyers. Yeah, there's lots of, and the reason we say gangbang lawyers is because they represent the gangbangers. And if you're a gangbanger, you have to be banging the gang, right? So you're a gangbang lawyer because you're not a gangbanger lawyer. Although that would probably work too. So I think it fits. Yeah, I think it fits. Knox. And it would appear that the U.S. vis-a-vis a reporter asked the president of El Salvador to return this dude. And he said, no. We all heard it, and someone should request that judicial notice be taken. Well, they did, and the judge says she's not taking it, right? I think Knox, you probably sent that in before he read that report. But they did, and she's like, I don't care. That's not in my courtroom, so that's not evidence. They sent in the rev.com. They shared a link. Somebody just Googled transcript. First link. Here you go, Judge. Whatever. That's great. G-Men says it's supposed to be the American Civil Liberties Union. Hasn't been that for a long time. They care way more about foreigners than anything happening in America. Thank you, G-Men. Good comment. Knox is here. Just like the Braz story, it is obvious the ACLU attorneys never visit the jail. Everyone gets moved without notice. Oh, I see. Yeah, on that other lawsuit in Colorado where they're saying they're moving them. They didn't know. Yeah, and they really want notice. Like they want 30 days notice so that the ACLU lawyers can all file and muck up the deportees in the process. Hey, Rick Donner says, here's a quote. Here's a quote from, hey, and thank you. We got no nips. Thank you, Rick D. And I just kept scrolling. I didn't even check. That was risky, but Rick's very reliable. So Senator Chris Van Hollen came out with a comment like this. This is, just a fake quote. He could be my son, just like Obama said about, who was that? Who was like trying to kill someone? He could be my son. Yeah, there he is. No nips. No nips. Thank you for that, Rick D. Amazing, amazing comment. Brandon Carter. Welcome aboard, Brandon Carter. We'll see you on the Membo stream tomorrow. Thanks for supporting our work here. And Mock Schnell. Bringing in 20 new membos. Thank you, Mock Schnell. More speed is here, bringing in more membos. We got Keith Bradbury. What's up, Keith? Linda Hunter, James Lowe, Rico Blaine, Nicholas McCoy, Joshua Smith, June Love, Veg Scrog Bloom. What's up, Ricochet? We got Adams here. XRP Panic. Scott is here. RRD. LTC Vet. We got Health Darby. Buddy 305 Love. We got David Macy. What's up, Crimson Decade? Peter O's joining. Lazul. All gifted membos courtesy of Mock Schnell in the house. Thanks for bringing them in, Mock Schnell. And welcome 20 new amazing friends. Deplorable One says, if the judge is saying that the case has to be handled via the ICE manual, then her ICE manual, she has no jurisdiction in this case. She's not an ICE judge. Yeah, and isn't the ICE manual in under the purview and the prerogative of the executive branch who executes the law? And so they write a manual for themselves in accordance with the statutes. So she's like, I guess every administration is bound by the prior administration's precedent when it comes to illegals in our country. No. Just because the other Democrats who are in charge invaded our country with millions of people does not give them an eternal right to continue the invasion. That's why we have elections, to change the policies. We've done that. Now a judge is trying to revert back to the pre-Trump era? No. Don't. If Zenas rhymes with doesn't respect Trump, she sure doesn't respect the president of a backwater country like El Salvador. No, I think she's treating him like that too. I don't care what he said in the Oval Office. I don't care. Her boss is over the Atlantic in Brussels. Yeah, I'm not sure who it would be, but yeah, she has an interesting background. Appointed by Obama, political appointee, used to sue cops. Maybe that's why she wants gangbangers here, so that they can attack more cops and her friends can get rich. Wow, dark. One old guy's opinions says this inferior court judge, Zenas, is about to get impeached. What a bee, no doubt. What's up, old lady? Doctor R trying new medications for my son tonight. Pray it works. We're doing that, old lady. Thanks for the update. And I'm glad you guys are continuing to try different things. And we're hopeful that he recovers. Thanks for the update. We're sending more prayers your way. Wes Downer is here. What's up, Wes? Hey, Wes is bringing in 10 membos. Thank you, Wes, for doing this. Welcome, Roland Norberg. We got Britt Cormier, Tom Forsyth, Eric Bates, Alien Robot Ghost, Nancy Slavin, AB is here, Porchview Farm, Ray Wright, and Audie Joe, gifted membos, courtesy of Wes Downer. Thanks, Wes, for doing that. One old guy says, all this Zenas stuff could have been avoided if SCOTUS would just spank some district courts' booties. That's true, but they didn't. She called it mushy. We usually use the phrase squishy, like the squishy Republicans, or, you know, just kind of do whatever. They just fit the mold, however you mush them in. Yeah. Hey, Adam M says, a YouTuber I watch said Tish changed her residence to VA, thus vacating her position by doing so. Maybe we could dig further into it, please. Yeah, so I saw that. I think I saw that. Oh, I can't remember the name. Yeah, it's interesting. That is an interesting concept. Yeah. We always love a good Tish story, so we'll keep our eye on it. Thank you for it. Hey, one old guy says the president of El Salvador said he was not going to let his El Salvadorian citizen go. Yeah, and it's nice that Caroline also confirmed that they say he's MS-13 too. Right. So it's not like they're just holding on to somebody like a storage unit. It's their citizen who was involved in human trafficking. They want him in jail too. And he's their citizen. Number one deplorable says, I do believe improperly sending someone to another country would be no parachute. Yeah, that's one way. That would probably be improper. Yeah. Courts wouldn't look too kindly to that. But we're not doing that. You know, we're not even throwing them out of planes with parachutes, which would be another option. Hey, Doan, redefining facilitate won't fly at the adult table. Yeah, the judge is going to come out and say facilitate ultimately means effectuate. Well, she wrote that in her decision there. She didn't really go that far because she won't. Yeah, she won't do it. She just won't do it. Gloria B, what's up? Hey, because she can't. Celestia gifted a membo. Thank you, Gloria B, for bringing in Celestia as a new membo. One old guy's opinion says Judge Zenas is released from U.S. government custody. He's now in El Salvadorian custody. Judge, get on the horn with the president of El Salvador and demand him and bring Garcia back to the U.S. Judge, get on the horn. Yeah, maybe she should. Hey, what's up? Stephen Mosher says Bukele should go to the court and flip the judge off. Yeah, or just talk all sorts of garbage against her from afar and just see how much we can muck this whole thing up. And I'm never releasing him, Judge, now especially. Like, nothing you can do about it. So good luck. You made it worse, Judge. Now, because of you, we're never releasing him. Wow. Nevada Legion, but it's not about Kilmar, to be clear. It's not about that dude. It's about all the illegals everywhere. What's up, Nevada Legion? What a nice dono over on Rumble. Thank you, Nevada, for watching over there. Says, Abrego Garcia's wife should have had Biden pardon her husband. Biden pardoned thousands of other criminals. Yeah. Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't do that. A blanket pardon for Tren de Aragua terrorists and other friends of Hunter Biden. Thank you, Nevada. Good comment. Hey, Chubby, these activist judges are utterly ridiculous in their power inebriation. Even with the smackdown SCOTUS has, reluctantly I feel, handed down so far, time to step it up. Also, thanks for adding the show note synopsis to the email notifications again. Greatly appreciate them. Good to see you, Chubby. Thank you for the feedback on that. Sometimes we add them. I'm getting better about it. What's up, Ken L? Hey, immigration judges are Article 2 judges under the DOJ. 8 U.S. Code 1103G gives AG power to write the regulations. Thank you for this. Title 8, Chapter 5 allows the AG to review all immigration judges and boards' orders, just review and reverse the withholding order. Ken, what a great pithy comment that connects the dots there. Thank you for that. Yeah, and that's essentially what I was showing us, the end game on that, right? The attorney general can make the decision, national security withholding is not appropriate, he has to go. And some great background there, right? Article 2, that's why it resides with the AG. Great comment. Hey, Mr. Magic Man says, it's obvious Judge Zenas failed the Stephen Miller School of Immigration Law. That's true. Yeah, so did the media, man. They're having a hard time with that. He's like educating them like paint by numbers. Just put the green in number 1, okay? Just put it here. Don't think too hard. Sheila Poo, Zenas is whacked. What a nut job. Yeah, that's a good comment, Sheila. Stephen Mosher says, jail Bukele until he returns our citizen. Which is great because he's not our citizen at all. But that's basically what they're saying, right? That's a great, somebody should, that's hilarious, man. I could see somebody like that guy, No Cap on God, whatever, that guy who went to the DNC that one time. He could go, you could go down to a Democratic protest and you could put that on a sign, right? And they would all support you. Return our citizen. Bring him back. Idiots. Hilarious. That's funny, Stephen. Hey, a big hug from me to you, Cheryl. What's up, Cheryl? Thank you, Cheryl, for bringing in 5 new membos. Salty Assassin in the house. We got Nana's here. Lucky Lady. Welcome. Carl Swelling and Lori Falconer. Gifted membos courtesy of Cheryl. Thank you, Cheryl. Big hugs. We got for bringing them in. Hey, Fred is here. Congress never defunds these judges. Why? Well, because Congress is pathetic. They don't do anything. They don't defund anything. Have they defunded anything ever in the history of ever? I don't think so. Hey, Sheila Poo, maybe like the independent counsel, but they don't defund anything. They just move the money around. Sheila Poo, what's up? Hey, 14 months as a membo, inching towards that second baby. Love you all. We love you back, Sheila. Thanks for being here for 14 months and for supporting us and for being so fun and amazing in the comments. We're grateful to have you here. We got Cheryl, member for 11 months. Whew, that's almost 1 full year. Happy anniversary coming up to us soon. Says Judge Zenas rhymes with. Yeah, I'm kind of that one's kind of sticking a little bit. Charlie D. Charlie D. Hey, thanks for upgrading your membership on the YouTubes. You can always upgrade your membership if you want to support us a little harder. Thank you, Charlie D, for doing it. One old guy's opinion says MS-13 originates in El Salvador. The rival gang to MS-13 is in El Salvador. The government of El Salvador has all but eradicated gangs in El Salvador. Garcia is MS-13. El Salvador president will not allow a gang member back on the streets again. Yeah. And it's nice to hear that Bukele's confirming from their end, like both sides of the equation are saying this dude's no good. I don't want, Bukele doesn't want to release him either. If he's an innocent man and he's a regular citizen of El Salvador, like, are the El Salvadorians mad? Are they? Are they protesting for the release of Kilmar? Did the El Salvadorians even care? That's a great question. Like, do white Democrats in America have more concern for a foreign illegal terrorist than native El Salvadorians do? Probably. I don't know. I don't know if they're upset in El Salvador about it, but if they are, then they can petition Bukele to release their citizen and they can deal with it down there. Are they mad? I don't know. Content of Character says, sadly, all the women and most of the men in my family believe this BS. Well, they got duped by a corrupt media. So hopefully you can point them to this show so we can clear it up for them. Yeah. And we've got our research files, which we're creating as a compendium so that you can share these with your friends and just send them the documents and just say, here, this is how it worked. This is who the judge is. This is what the actual arguments are. Here are the documents. And so over at the Lodge, we've got our research files that we're working on so that we can share them around with everybody and they can just see on their faces that it's not reality. Doan is here. Says Kilmar probably worked longer at the regular job for his cover, longer than Bernie Sanders did through his entire grifting life. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, trafficking fentanyl, trafficking humans is a lot of work. It's like, yeah, they don't, they work. They work. You got to dodge the police, kind of, if Joe Biden's in charge, not really. But there's a lot of work there. Bernie Sanders just shows up and just says the same thing for 40 years. Oligarchy, oligarchy, oligarchy for 40 years. Meanwhile, he is a literal part of the ruling class, literally. Chief Vince, I was hoping Bukele would have shown up in court while in town. That would have been a classic game over. That would have been hilarious. Yeah, if he's just sitting back there in court, just sitting back at the podium, back in the benches, just kind of cleaning his sunglasses off. No, just here to observe. No questions. Hey, Rob, Bernie, go to El Salvador and get him. Bring him to your house. Dems want illegals and terrorists in the country, but won't take them in their own homes and support them. They want taxpayers to pay for them, like us. That's right. Knox is here. Why this guy, though? People get deported every freaking day. What is the connection to the DNC? Someone knows someone. Well, I think, Knox, I think it's political. I think that the poison pill was set by the suspended DOJ attorney, and this administrative error narrative has been a political thing to latch onto. So we've got our work cut out for us because there were filings from the Trump administration that say that, and they just keep sharing those over and over. But that was by a poison pill attorney who got suspended for not adequately representing the administration's position. So he's gone. So that's why they smell blood in the water on this one. J-Men, thank you for this, J-Men. Quoting the judge says, facilitate his return. Trump to El Salvador. Do you want to release him? A court wants him back in the States, El Salvador to America. We don't release terrorists. We don't do that here. No, they don't. And their whole country used to be a disaster, but they have made changes. They don't deal with terrorists anymore. They don't deal with gangbangers anymore. And their country has improved. Guess what? We want that in our country too. Thank you, J-Man, for the nice dono. Hey, this one from Nancy Jennings says, to add icing on the cake, just watch Biden's live speech. OMG, you will have a field day with this one. Oh, gosh. We were making fun of Joe Biden this morning. You know, he was speaking at a disability event today. He gave the keynote address at the disability event. He's like, look, he's like, even if you're disabled, even if your brain doesn't work, there's hope for you. You can be the president of America. And then Jill's like, okay, open up. Here comes your ice cream, like an airplane. There you go, Joe. So he spoke there. I can't believe it. It's amazing. They woke him up, dragged him out for a speech on disability since he's got one. Doan is here. Trump administration are victims of political persecution. No doubt, man. And if the Democrats ever touch power again, can you imagine what they're going to do? That's why we can't let them. Mizzy M says, I have lived through a few decades, but I feel like I've gotten more truth in the past 5 years than I did in my whole life. Thanks for explaining this so well. Exciting times to be alive. Mizzy M. Well, I gotta say, I think that there is a great awakening going up. I mean, I think that I think I'm personally speaking, not just this show, but COVID and a lot of things shook me out of a stupor I was already very skeptical and anti-government. I'm a defense attorney. It's kind of in my blood. But what COVID did and the reaction to COVID and all of the aftermath really started to shake the facade of what is really happening. And I think the country's going through an awakening. And it's really, really exciting to be going through it together with you, Mizzy M. Thank you for being here and joining us on this journey. It's a real honor. And I agree. We're going through history together and we're playing in it now. Like we're playing in the game. It's pretty cool. Neuro D, Neurodivergent One. What's up, Neuro D? Says, hey, make sure you hit that follow and smash that thumbs up, peeps. It's a great reminder. Thank you, Neuro D, for doing that. If you haven't done that, if your thumbs work, we'd appreciate it. Hey, Michael, what a very nice dono, Michael. Thanks for sending this one in. Michael Comilio in the house. Thank you, Michael. Very nice of you. Says, I love how you call the donkeys on all the BS. I like how you call all the BS on these. That's a bull and that's a poop. On these crazy activist judges and crazy libs in Congress. Thanks again for all your hard work, Michael. I appreciate that, man. It's a real honor to be able to spend this time with you. And they are crazy. We're hopeful. We're trying to be a part of the solution here. Okay. Hopefully, if we tell them enough, they'll work on their craziness. You don't have to live this way, Democrats. Wake up. Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much for the nice dono. Very generous. And we will continue to do it. Hey, one old guy. Senator A. Holland, you have no authority in El Salvador. Well, he's going to learn. Yeah, it's going to be fun when he goes down there. I hope he records it. Hey, Knox is here. The ability of individuals to scream about something of which they possess zero knowledge never ceases to amaze me. Yeah. Somebody should make signs for Kilmar. Return our citizen Kilmar to America. Rob, what's up? Let the congressmen go and break into the prison to get them out and get taken captive and imprisoned for their crime. That'd be great. That'd be great. Senator Van Hollen, he's making one of those Bernie videos. He's like, I'm now coming to you again from El Salvador. I'm seated in custody next to Kilmar. Tried to get him out. Now I'm here. What's up? Content of character. Says they were never this dedicated to getting vets needed assistance. Never. Where they were for the vets? Never. Or getting drugs off our streets? Never. Western North Carolina could use some attention too, Democrats. Well, sorry, they're too busy to care about North Carolina or veterans because they've got gang members in El Salvador. They're spending all of their litigation on. Really great work. Hey, Chubby says MS-13 is a designated terrorist organization in the United States of America. Abrego is a self-admitted member of MS-13 since he is a terrorist and as such an enemy of the United States. All these people, the judges, lawyers, I'd argue even the dissenting SCOTUS members are offering aid and comfort to a known enemy of America. They're all guilty of the T word. Wow. Yeah, and it is curious, right? Where do their allegiances lie? Why are they fighting so hard for these causes and ignoring like when you have a guy like Chuck Schumer, who, as I mentioned, is flat out lying on his post about effectuate his return. That's not what they said at all. What is that? What is that? It's not an honest mistake. He's a senator. And the media doesn't call him out on that. They don't call him liars. He's just trying to harm Trump by perverting the law, and that's dishonest. So he's a liar. Hey, this old guy. Okay, they're saying, let's start a war with El Salvador. Yeah, that's great. Over Garcia? You mean send a couple of marshals down there? They have absolutely no jurisdiction. Break Garcia out of a prison that's protected by 2 divisions of the El Salvador military and a 14-foot tall outer wall? That is total ignorance. And, I guess in Maryland, maybe they want him to go get this gangbanger back. That's why he's going down there. It must be a political win for him. All the blues in Maryland. Will Crump. At what point does this judicial hack get told to butt out of the Article 2 governance and national security? At what point does she face punishment from Will Crump? A long way away. The judges are so insulated in our country. It's starting to get pretty sick here. Has been pretty sick here for a while. So not much. Congress is not going to impeach her. They're not going to do anything. So it's probably going to be a while. But Trump is enforcing, right? This is the separate but equal. Trump is enforcing, flexing, saying, don't you encroach on our branch. Don't even think about it. Hey, Rick D says, oh, dear Lord, he sounds like he's about to fall over. It's Joe Biden. Oh, gosh. All right, we'll save that for tomorrow morning. Chris Zeke, hey, can you now sue and or charge the ACLU for providing material support to a designated terrorist organization? That's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. I wonder who would have standing on that. Somebody who maybe donated to the ACLU, donated some big money, sue to recover those costs since they're suing to support a designated terrorist. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they would refund that back. It's interesting. You'd have to see what the damages are and see what the claim would be. But yeah, I like it. What's up? Knox is here. Income tax, the fine you pay for not being quite the person your ancestor was. Gosh, I've been reading a bit more about the 16th Amendment and trying to understand why our country did that. Like what kind of position were we in where we had an amendment for an income tax that was passed? Like, it must have been bad for people to be that confused. But there were a lot of the robber barons, so-called, right? The Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, and more. But they're just like, tax me. It's like, we fought a revolution, and then we come in with the 16th Amendment. We fought a revolution over taxes without representation in those things. But then we're just like, income tax. Wow. And we had the Federal Reserve, and Woodrow Wilson is the worst person ever. G-Men, what exactly was inaccurate about what Miller said in the Oval Office? Yeah, nothing. Nothing. You could say it was like the holding didn't say exactly what he says, but you can infer out of it that that's what they said. Like, he's not quoting language from SCOTUS, but by not ordering him released, by not ordering him out, that's what they said. And so he's kind of, I think, expressing the opinion in the negative, not what they said, but what they didn't say, and interpreting that as their message, which is right. They didn't order him to do anything. They said the district court, butt out. What's up? Fred Petamonte says, it was AG Bondi that made this a thing. Error? Maybe. I don't know if it was her that called it an administrative error or not. I think it was the Ezra Ruvini guy who was put on suspension after that terrible oral argument where he's like, I don't know what they're doing, Judge. I don't know what they're doing. So it may have emanated from her, but it was erroneous. And the person who made that incorrect claim, right? It's just like if your lawyer comes in and says, hey, Judge, this person says this. Like, I never said that, moron. You're fired. New judge, new lawyer. That's what it was. Villa Plot. Hey, thank you, Rob. Obtaining my legal status was not easy, quick, or cheap. I appreciate the welcome. And we appreciate you, Villa Plot. Thanks for coming into our country legally. Thanks for doing it the right way and following the laws. You're a good addition. We appreciate you being here. Kendall Links says, Judge Zenas must think she has the same power and authority as the great Scientology overlord called Xenu. Maybe. Yeah, maybe she thinks that we have Trump put, what, like thetans or something? Is that what those things are called? In the body of the aliens? I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting ideology there, Scientology. But Judge Zenas sounds like Xenu. Could be. Chat with me. Interview with Trump, Elon, Tom Homan, Mama Govea. If it's Mama, she needs to bring recipes. She is. She's coming up here for Mother's Day. And for Mother's Day, she's going to make me meatballs. Hey, what's going on, Colleen? I have to give credit to Caroline and Stephen credit. They have not lost their cool completely yet. I love Stephen's government lessons to the press. Yeah, he's doing a great job. Yeah, Stephen, and that exchange yesterday was very good. Hey, the Noble Spud is here. The foundation of the Irish diet. Spuds, thank you for being here, Spuds. Look who's coming in, bringing in 5 membos. Capillage is here. Jack Graham, welcome. Jay Sauce, what's up? Jennifer Wilson and Fonzie in the house, courtesy of Spuds. Thank you, Spuds, for bringing in our new membos. Number one deplorable says, hey, Judge, you can kiss my booty, but what, by the way, diplomatic immunity. And definitely, sovereign immunity, qualified immunity, separation of powers, all sorts of other issues that Trump will be raising in due course. Quadcam is here. Says, with all that USAID money that Doge saved us, Trump should spend some of it. Parts that we're required to spend to El Salvador to help build out and strengthen their prison system, to sweeten the deal a bit so that they can take more Kilmars. Be better use of money than sending it to the trans festivals in the Congo. French fry. Hey, real question. What happens if the president ignores a federal judge, especially in foreign affairs? Well, it's a great question. You're kind of seeing it happen. We're watching it right now. Like the judge has ordered what she thinks she is allowed to order, which was to his return. Trump has not returned this dude. Okay, she ordered him returned like a month ago. Has not been returned. It's been stayed. The Supreme Court gave us the very squishy opinion that says that the judge was kind of ordering him to do things that he can't do. He says he can do. She says he can't do it. So it's kind of a threshold question. Is ignoring, like, what is ignoring a federal judge? Like, you have to get there first. Because in the law, there's always an argument that he's not ignoring anything. She's saying he's not complying. He's saying I am complying. So it's kind of an it depends question. Now, what's happening now is she's saying you are essentially ignoring my order. So she's holding discovery. So she's going to now, demand emails and production of evidence and try to get to the bottom of it to see if he's acting in bad faith, which would then lead to contempt and to sanctions. So then she can hold him in contempt or maybe jail somebody, right? Ultimately, she could jail somebody. She could fine somebody. She could order something. And the question, though, is what power does she have to enforce those orders? If Trump just says, I'm not doing it, then Trump can just, I'm not going to do it. And then she can say, well, you're ordered to do it. Well, I'm not going to, because I have constitutional rights to do. Supreme Court can come in and flesh it out. And I think Trump has always said that if the Supreme Court tells him what to do, then he'll follow the Supreme Court, right? Trump has never, as far as I've heard, said that he would go against the Supreme Court or any court, really. He showed up when he had his mugshot. He showed up when he had his sentencing virtually. He shows up. This Trump's going to ignore the courts is just a fake thing that's never happened. He's been totally compliant with the courts. But hypothetically, if he did, let's say it gets all the way up to the Supreme Court. Let's say the Supreme Court said, bring him back tomorrow. They didn't at all. They could have. They didn't. If they wanted that and thought they had the power to do that, why didn't they do that? Because they don't have the power to do that. This is the president's role, not theirs. Not Article 3, not the courts. But if they did and Trump ignored the Supreme Court, then the check on that power is impeachment. Then Congress could say, oh, we have a constitutional crisis. The executive and the judiciary are in conflict. So now Congress can settle that via impeachment. It works. But the remedy is not to have a judge take over the executive branch because they don't like what they're doing. So that's how it's working out right now. We'll see if it goes that far, but we're not even close to anything like impeachment yet. Bill Dozer says the media lies like they breathe. My Bernie bro friend laps up the Abrego narrative like a kitten to warm milk. Also, I'm 153 away from 1,000 followers on Rumble. Check it out. My show is adequate. That's good, man. Adequate is good. It's better than terrible. So that's going for you. I'm sure it's amazing. I know you're being what's the word? Immolating? Deprecating. Now, the media lies. Yeah. So shout out to our friend Bill Dozer. If you're on Rumble right now or on YouTube, check out his channel, 153 away from 1K. That's a big number, man. That's a big milestone. So congrats to you. Hey, Just Rhonda, shout out to my YouTube friends. See you eventually. So Just Rhonda is saying shout out to our YouTube friends. For some reason, she is banned or shadow banned, not due to our doing. But she misses you and sends love. Just Rhonda, we miss you too. Hey, Princess D. Hey, Princess D, 10 months as a member, says, thanks for all you do. Thank you, Princess D. Thanks for hanging with us. It's really a privilege and an honor. We got more here. El Salvador. What is the purpose of your visit? Democrat. To free a terrorist. El Salvador says, oh, well, your visa's denied. So go back to America. Good luck in Maryland. Uncle Bozy says, the poison pill attorney is right. They got another underminer at the Pentagon today who worked under Hegseth and was part of the Signalgate fake scandal. The guy is now suspended and may be prosecuted for leaking. Takes time to ID and remove traitors and saboteurs in the administration. Yeah, so poison pill attorney, not that the attorney is right, but that calling them a poison pill attorney is the right call. Yeah, absolutely what it was. And it worked. It was embedded in an original filing and declaration, so it worked its way into the rest of the case. Never was the situation that it was an error. One old guy says, Dems love to latch at political teats like this so-called error. Totally. Dems, stop latching on to the taxpayer teats. Yeah, go on to someone else's teats, not ours. We don't want you on our teats anymore. Chief Vince, you know, President Bukele should issue an arrest warrant for that judge in his country meddling in his country's immigration affairs. That's another great idea. Yeah. Oh, she says that the El Salvador country is not in compliance. Sounds like a threat. Maybe she's not in compliance. She's banned. Her visa is canceled. She's banned from El Salvador and on the top 10 most wanted list to boot. Thank you, Chief Vince. Good idea. Sniper bait. Can we sue the judges for an abuse of our tax dollars or the Democrats? No, not really. There's this concept in the law called political questions, and if you want a change in leadership, then you should vote for those things. You don't get to file lawsuits, which sometimes feels unfortunate. But the idea would be to vote for Congress people to then impeach the judges, right? Would be the remedy there. Doan is here. In other words, you're not going to sue to get another judge to issue a ruling to remove another judge. Doan is here. Is a senator lobbying El Salvador a Hatch Act violation? No. Yeah, so I think the Hatch Act is for political stuff out of the executive branch. But I think there's another act, right, that's called, wasn't the Hatch Act the one that Karine always talked about? I thought there was another one. Is it the Hatch Act? Logan Act. I think it's Logan. Thank you for the assist. I think it's the Logan Act. Yeah. So Logan Act would be like the, like what John Kerry did, right? Trying to negotiate behind Trump's back. The Logan Act. Great call. That came out from Russ Williams. Thank you, Russ Williams. Great assist on that. Yeah. I think that's the one. So yeah, maybe Logan Act. Number one deplorable. What about the actual U.S. citizens that are in prison around the world? Where's all the protesting for them? Not to mention the prisoners of war. Yeah, where's the ACLU like fighting for the left Americans abandoned in Afghanistan or something? They're not. They're suing for terrorists. Uncle Bozy, the best punishment for a power-mad hack judge is exactly what the government lawyers are doing. Just look her in the eye and calmly say, no. Totally right. Then smile as she screeches and yowls and rages, LOL. 100% right. Which is kind of what I was getting at when I'm like, they sent her the rev.com link. They're like, here's a transcript, Judge. They're like, well, what? We're not doing anything? There was an Oval Office meeting with El Salvador. They're laughing their asses off, to be honest with you. I can envision the room. They're like, oh, man, like before the hearing, like, this is going to be fun. Just no, Your Honor, they had a full White House Oval Office meeting about it. She's like, that's not what I'm talking about. They're just laughing. It's having so much fun. Rick Donner. Yeah, it was 1913. Wilson and a Democrat Congress when it was ratified. Now, tragically, the proposed amendment was passed by a Republican Congress in 1909, right? And the states had to ratify it, right? It's a big process to get an amendment through. So okay, I can understand how a corrupt Congress and executive can sign a bill into law. That I can get. But then all of the other states ratifying it, like state by state, they're like, I can't wait to pay more money to the government. And to be also clear about it, it was a bait and switch. So the first iteration of the income tax was only for the ultra high earners and the wealthy, and then it hit everybody else, right? They came back down, and as everything, it got normalized onto all of us, and we're all suffering as a result. Deluxe Night. Hey, happy Blessed Taco Tuesday, Watcher fam. Finally getting some of that vitamin D here in Washington State, actually being over 75 today. How about the rest of you? Man, it's beautiful here in Prescott, Arizona. It's been like mid 70s today. Beautiful winds, beautiful clouds. They said we were going to get a little bit of rain, and I actually appreciate like when the rain comes through, it bursts for like an hour. Beautiful, clears everything out, and then carries on. But we have not had that today. But it was gorgeous. Yeah, it was gorgeous today. Glad you're out there getting some sun. Deluxe Night, our farmer in the house. Hey, Mr. Trump Train. Oh, baby, man, only 8,000 more subs, and we're hitting 500,000. That's a big one. Subs, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already subscribed, we're super close. And we want to be on your subscription list. We really do. Thank you for that, Mr. Trump Train. Getting close, baby. I'm really grateful for you all for being a part of this. It's really, really wild. Thank you, Mr. Trump Train, for the shout out. What's up, Doc68 Whiskey? Became a member over on the Rumbles. Good to see you, Doc68 Whiskey. Excited to have you as a member. Thanks for supporting us over there. Uncle Bozy says, if Zinnis held someone like Homan, for example, in contempt and ordered him jailed, who could take him into custody? The marshals. What if Trump ordered the marshals to stand down and not comply? When push comes to shove, I think the judiciary actually has no enforcement mechanism. Am I right or wrong? I mean, I guess it depends on how you define enforcement mechanism. I mean, like they definitely, like they got a bailiff in there, and they've got some like security, they've got some money, they've got some resources. And so if you're in a courtroom and a judge says, remand that man into custody, like just thinking about this practically, you're in there, remand that man into custody. Are the people in the courtroom going to do that? Yeah, probably. So then what happens? Like are you going to have a shootout in the courtroom? Like they're probably going to take that person in. So if a judge says take him in, probably going in that day. Unless you've got, some other forces that are outside. But then that's a real like physical crisis. Right? So what do you do? So does Tom Homan show up with a bunch of DHS agents who tell the bailiff or the law enforcement in the courtroom? No, he's not going anywhere. Thanks, though. Right? That's where things get really fun. All right, what's up? Knox is here. The whole tax scam is crazy. Check out the creature from Jekyll Island and G. Edward Griffin. Yeah, the tax scam is a scam. It's thievery of our lives. And I can't believe our countrymen did that 100 years ago and said, this is a great idea for all of us. Wild times. It's like hard to believe, actually. How did Americans do that to themselves? Talk about self-immolation. Yeah. Knox Bierman, the creature from Jekyll Island. Short form summary on that, where the Federal Reserve and all those things came about as they stole our country from us. My friends, really amazing comments and donos. Thank you for sending all of that in. Thanks for your support. Thanks for the great questions, the fun comments. Welcome, new members. Very excited to have you. Let's say hello to our friends on X and see what's happening over there before we go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com and do a members only debrief and after party and hang out for a bit. Who is joining us on X on the day? We got some comments over here. Minnie Tika. Oh, Elliot also might have a poem here, a short one. You've got to effectuate a compromise, facilitate a canny guise, careful approach procedure-wise, SCOTUS, the mysteries, what they mean. Elliot, we've been having some amazing poetry, by the way, on our members-only streams. Boopsy shared one this morning about our Heavenly Father, and it was great. Elliot's been dropping some. We had another great one yesterday. Who shared that one? Name's escaping me, but a really, really great poetry, no doubt. What's up? Fred is here. It always amazes me which circumstance the Dems choose which hill they die on. Why would anyone vote for them? No idea. Elliot, when ancient Greek kings and heroes misinterpreted the oracle at Delphi, they made fools of themselves. When district courts misinterpret per curiam punts, they make fools of the Supreme Court. Good comment from Elliot. Yeah. And she thinks she's right. She thinks she can read the crystal ball. Hey, George is here. Rob, been with you from the Mar-a-Lago raid. Ugh, that's been a while. So thankful for your show. Thank you, my friend. You are the original OG lawyer show. I don't know about that, man. I think there are a lot of people doing it before us. And setting trends, and we're grateful for them. I mean, I think that I was inspired by, like, Viva. Nick Recato was doing a bunch of stuff back then. He's coming back soon. And setting trends. Can't even tell you how much I've learned about law and constitution, even a few vocab words. Me too. Me too. I love watching the Watchers. We love you back, George. Thanks for being here, man. What a great comment. Really an honor to be spending time with you. So thanks for that. Fred, thank you. Great comment there. Sharon the Patriot. Ha, ha, ha. Oh, yes. The El Salvadorian president who kidnapped his citizen. And Darby Shaw. When was the last time a Democrat judge or any other worked this hard for the return of a U.S. citizen? Rob, why this guy? Why are the Dems so fixated on this one illegal? Because they smell blood in the water. Yeah, and like Viva, right? I think Viva was one of the first shows that I was ever on. Viva and Barnes. Shout out to those guys. Had an interview with them long time ago. I'm like, this is crazy. It's been a wild ride. I'm super grateful to be here. It's been a journey, but it's been a lot of fun. My friends, thanks for sending that in. Thanks for those great comments and for saying hello over on X. Make sure you're following other watchers out there in the wilderness. And David Hurley filling us in on the 16th Amendment, saying the 16th Amendment was brought to us by a progressive movement. Any direct tax was supposed to be equally apportioned among the states, and then we ignored that. Yeah, got rid of the whole thing. Like the 16th Amendment was a disaster, and it's an amendment. So it's like, what can you do? Horrible, horrible situation. All right, so great comments. We got to get rid of that 16th and do something about it. So hopefully they're working on that. But all right, my friends, what an absolutely beautiful stream it has been. Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for going through the Zenith stuff. We're going to have a lot more about it. Is the mic low? Is the mic low? Someone's saying the mic is low. Has it been low this whole time? Here, let me boost it a little bit. Give that little nudge up there. I don't know if that's doing anything. Little bit there. Ooh, I can hear it. All right, mic's fine. We got a couple comments on the mic. Just boosted it a smidge there. All right, good. It's good. All right, so my friends, what an absolutely amazing and beautiful stream it has been. Happy Taco and Papusa Tuesday. We are going to pause there on the evening. We're going to hang out on locals for just a bit and debrief. Otherwise, membos will be back in the morning. Thank you, YouTube membos and locals members, for joining us tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern. We're going to have some more fun stuff to talk about. And then we're going to parlay that into another interview that will be on with some friends tomorrow. So come check that out if you want to be a part of it. Otherwise, my friends, before we wrap it up, we want to say thanks to our amazing mods and meme smiths. K-Bean in the house, Donut Mind Me, Carrie B, Playing Hooky, Dog Digger, and Janek modding the fort with us, and Donut clipping extra hard for us today, along with John. Thank you for the help, gentlemen. We also want to thank Jigum Gigum and Just Rhonda, our banned purveyor of fine emojis, who's not really banned, but YouTube's being difficult with, and Elliot, Docmaster, and Poetmaster for keeping things so beautiful around here. My friends, that is where we're going to leave it on the night. But we are coming back tomorrow to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.